All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome. If you are new here, thank you guys so much for joining me today. Get readjusted here and waiting patiently as always for the intro to finish up. I hope everybody's doing well today. We have a pretty busy day overall, I'd say, for PlayStation. A lot happening all at one time. RPD, what's up, man? JMR, Angry Whale Watcher. The show isn't until 5 o'clock, so it's 5 hours from now. I don't know that I'm going to be streaming the entire time leading up to it. Like, my goal today is to do a regular podcast episode for 2.5, 3.5 hours, give or take. Then after that, I'll start up another stream where it's just dedicated to watching the state of play, reacting to it, and talking about it afterwards. But we are going to talk about the state of play in this stream. We're going to talk about our expectations. But there's a lot of other stuff to discuss as well. Sony did their earnings, and they revealed a lot of, I would say, interesting information, stuff that I think is worth going over. Garrett, what's going on? Schmidt, welcome to the stream. Boss is not going to be so hold on. All right. Yeah, so one of the things we're going to be talking about today is Ghost of Yotei. I told you guys, I think like 2 weeks ago, give or take, I told you guys that when it comes to the discussion and the conversation around Ghost of Yotei, whether or not, it's selling well, is it selling well? Is it selling poorly? Is it just doing okay? I said that we're going to have to wait for Sony's earnings, because if Sony's going to talk about sales for Ghost of Yotei, it's going to be at their earnings call. And I also said that if they don't talk about it, that might be a sign that it's struggling. But luckily, they did talk about it. So we'll discuss that. Exactly, Irfan. MRPD are saying, after beating Liza P, I started playing Fox Hunt. And once it clicked for me and I got used to the mechanics, bro, it's effing addicting. It is. Yeah, I've been playing that a lot. I think I've put like 28 hours into it already. It is kind of addicting. It's just truly unfortunate that it's not getting the support that it needs. Unfortunately, I do feel as though Fox Hunt was set up to fail. I think Konami can save it if they do a couple of things, but whether or not they're going to do that remains to be seen. I say this because, like, dude, I went to go try to play a round or two of Fox Hunt this morning, and I couldn't. There was, like, it literally rejected me numerous times saying there's not enough players. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, dude, like, how many PS5 multiplayer games right now, how many PS5 multiplayer games can you boot up and then not get a match? This has to be like the only one. It's very depressing, because it's like, dude, Irvin, so yeah, when it comes to getting the Ghost of Yotei Platinum, I don't know, man. I have fallen off of this game. Not because it's bad, but because I enjoyed it. I just don't, dude, I don't feel like doing the busy work. No, I'm not, like, every time I boot it up and I look at the stuff, I gotta do the check boxes, and I'm like, I really don't want to do this. Right now, anyway, I'm not feeling it. But I keep playing it though. That's the thing. I'm like about 70% done the trophies, and I don't know. I think I need probably like 20 more, or 15 or 18, something along those lines. And I'm just like, I don't know. I'm feeling like it's very tedious for some reason to do this extra stuff, and I kind of don't want to do it. and I'm noticing that it feels very forced for me. So I'm questioning whether I'm actually going to get this platinum. Maybe I just need to come back to it later. But it was a good game. I enjoyed it. Yeah, and it got very tedious with Tsushima as well. Certainly, it took me my second playthrough of Tsushima before I did everything. So no, there could still be a spoiler cast. It just might, I'm going to be late to it, obviously, but I did some side stuff. Did you at least do the one storyteller mission towards the end? Are you talking about the one that references Tsushima? I did that one, yeah. Someone gift subs for him to platinum it. Look, I'm not saying I won't. I'm just saying right now, it feels like a slog to try to force myself. You know what I mean? Um, and I don't know. It's just this. It's a peculiar feeling. It happens sometimes with games. Uh, it just makes me wish that like the platinum could be achieved by just playing the game and doing just a few side missions, like story missions. That would be great. But finding all the shrines and having to find all the puzzle boxes and clear out every camp, and I'm like, this is where I start to get tired of the open world design, where it's like I don't want to keep doing all this stuff. Like I feel like I got my fill of Ghost of Yotei, and it was a great experience. I'm ready to put it down. But I also have that itch, like I said, where it's like, I do want the platinum though. But it's normal, it's not like it's not exclusive to Yotei. This is very normal for modern, open world games. It makes me hope that when Sucker Punch does something else, it makes me hopeful that they'll do something completely different next time around. Because if they want to do another Ghost game, I just hope they change the design a little bit in terms of like open world activities, because they said that they changed the design of Yotei to make it less repetitive. But it's like, guys, I'm sorry, but like it's not your fault. I don't know how you fix this problem, but it's just, this is the nature of these open world type games, where there's this story, you play through the story, you can explore the world, you can do some side quests, but at some point it starts to turn into you're checking off the boxes. But it's still a good game. You thought world exploration was done perfectly in Yotei? Yeah, I think that's kind of the problem, right? Is, at least for me, where the exploration is done well, but I'm finding when I play it, I'm trying to like rush to clean up everything. And that to me was the sign that like I'm playing this for the wrong reasons at this point. Like I'm literally trying to rush to find everything, and I'm just like going into camps and quickly clearing them. Like, all right, let's go, 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 go. Because I guess I've gotten my fill of the game. That's why you have 10,000 trophies but no platinums. I love that. I absolutely love that. I wish that could be me. And Irfan, you asked me about the Plants vs Zombies trophy. So another depressing story here. I did get the trophy, and I know that seems like a good thing, only to find out that there's an even more difficult trophy. At which point I broke and I uninstalled the game, and I'm like, I've put 45 hours into Plants vs Zombies. I'm moving on now. This is where I can't take it anymore, man. Where I got that trophy, and it took me like 15 hours to get that trophy. And afterwards, I found out, well, now you have to play the game and beat it on Rest in Peace mode. And Rest in Peace mode means, it's permadeath. You have to play through the entire Adventure Plus mode, and you can't fail one time. Make it even harder, you have to beat it without using a single lawnmower. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into Plants vs Zombies. If you know, you know. And I tried multiple times and failed, and it puts you right back to the first level. And I'm like, nope. I know where this is headed, and I'm going to save myself the pain. I'm uninstalling it. I had to uninstall it, bro. It's still installed in the living room PlayStation 5 though, so if I do get the urge to play it again, that's where I'll play it. But yeah, I have 52% of the trophies for PVZ. I'm not going to be able to do that rest in peace mode. Therefore, I'm not going to be able to get the platinum. Um, but 45 hours in a $20 game, not bad. Not bad. It was really fun. It's a good game. The Game Awards 2025 to stream on Prime Video in a new deal with Amazon. Interesting. Damn. No, I didn't get to that yet, JMR. I think I might still try to go for that because that's like the one trophy I was looking at. I'm like, I've seen a lot of videos on this. Ghost of Yotei Legends at State of Play, probably not. The State of Play is focused on Japanese and Asian creators and games. So even though Ghost of Yotei is set in Japan, it's made by a Western development team with Sucker Punch. So I don't think this is where we'll see Legends. But Sony could do whatever they want. They could make like 95% of the show focused on Asian creators and Japanese creators, and then at the they could have like one announcement that's from their own studio. I mean, like I'm saying, it could show up, and I don't think anybody would be like, that's not a Japanese studio. Like, I don't think anybody would care. But what is that noise? What is that? I'm like freaked out right now because I'm hearing a voice. Dude, I'm like hearing there's somebody talking. Okay, I'm not crazy. I just looked out my window. There was somebody walking by talking on their phone really loudly. I was like freaked out because I'm like, I can hear this clear as day. Like, who's talking right now? Sorry. Um, Ghosts, man. Oh, Kingdom Hearts 4. Oh, yeah, that could be a big one. Jake Skew or Jake Skull. I know that's what it actually means. Member for 24 months. Thank you for that, buddy. He says, just beat Death Stranding 2 story. And what games are you thinking we see? I'm hoping for Phantom Blade Zero. Well, I'm happy to hear you beat Death Stranding 2, Jake. I hope you enjoyed it. Games I would like to see today. So knowing that it's focused on Japanese creators, Asian creators, and Asian video games. The first one that comes to mind is Resident Evil 9. Yeah, the big Leon reveal. I am not convinced that's happening. I think that's happening at the Game Awards. But, Capcom and Sony have been pretty tight over the years, especially with Resident Evil reveals. So it could. It could. Yeah, we could see Gran Turismo 7, some kind of GT update. Onimusha. I think about Kojima Productions. Kojima was just visiting Guerrilla Games. Maybe it's too soon to hear anything from Kojima Productions, but it'd be cool. One of the things that may end up getting revealed is the Horizon multiplayer game from NCSoft. They're a Korean studio, I believe. So that would count. That would be part of the that would fit into the show nicely. Even though Horizon isn't a Japanese IP, Japanese created IP. And NCSoft just talked today. So I think there's a really good chance we could see that. Laman, you're saying no Horizon revealed today? Well, yeah, maybe it won't be revealed at the State of Play because don't they have their own event that they're doing, NCSoft? Or they're part of an upcoming Korean event? So, hold on. Who's... Marlin Gaming Nation tipped $10 saying, it's me, bro. I'm outside. I'm like, yo, who is that? Who was that talking outside my window? Why was that person so loud? They were so loud. They were loud enough that it literally stopped me from continuing my stream. I had to figure out what it was. But Marlon, thank you for that $10 direct donation, buddy. I appreciate it. Marvel Tokon, yes. Yeah, you're right. That's that I think that's a pretty safe bet, right? Like you would assume that'll show up. It's been a while since we've seen it Persona 4. What time is the show? So it's not until 5 p.m. Eastern time. We have like 4.5 hours. Blood. People still talking about Bloodborne, huh? Could From Software show up? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know, man. I've seen people talk about Final Fantasy 3 or Final Fantasy 7 Part 3. So Tides of Annihilation. There's many different games that could show up. I guess we'll start with the state of play discussion. We'll start with that first, since I know that's kind of like what's probably at the top of everybody's mind. And of course, we'll talk more about it when we do our second stream, actually, Rise of the Ronin 2. I think they did say they were making a sequel, right? The Duskbloods for PS5? No, I don't think that's going to show up. Neo 3, that would make a lot of sense. Well, let's talk about the fact that this state of play is a genuine surprise. I think they confirmed a sequel, MRPD. I'm pretty sure. If they didn't confirm a sequel, they made it clear that the game was a success, and I think they're looking into doing more with it. Something along those lines. Forspoken 2. Yeah, I can't. Dude, I made this joke on Twitter yesterday, and I don't usually make jokes on my Twitter, so I think a lot of people did not take it as a joke. But I put the picture of GTA 6, and I said, I can't wait to see GTA 6 trailer number 3 in Japanese tomorrow. And, you know, there are definitely some people where the joke went over their head, and they thought I was being serious, and it's like, guys, come on. But the whole thing, I think, is being streamed in Japanese, by the way. They will have subtitles, but keep that in mind. But yes, I will say that it is very interesting to me that we're even talking about a state of play right now. This state of play came literally out of nowhere. I mean, you guys know I cover this stuff, right? Not a single leak, not a single rumor, not even a whisper of a state of play. I'm over here thinking the next state of play is going to be like February of next year, because that's the way Sony's always done it. Sony does their... Not right now, no. You can let Luna out. But, well, you know what? Just leave the door. It's fine. Just don't do it. Sorry, it's damn cats. Yeah, I was saying that Sony does their big state of play in September. And then traditionally the way it's been handled is, you know, then they show up at the Game Awards, and they usually have a pretty big presence at the Game Awards. And then the next state of play is February or March. So this is somewhat unprecedented, you know, to get a random state of play, a long one too. It's going to be like 45 minutes or something like that. So this is a long state of play. This is a big show. Not trying to hype you up or anything, but you know, it's not like a 20-minute or 30-minute one. It's close. It's going to be close to an hour. So as far as I'm aware, Sony never did a show in November. They certainly never did a state of play in November. But this is a very unique one because it's the first time they're doing a Japanese-focused state of play. And this is very interesting. Apparently, there's going to be a new PS5 SKU announced today. It's going to be a Japan-only PS5 Slim model that will be priced, I think, at the equivalent of like $330, but it will be region-locked. So it seems like Sony's getting a lot more serious about trying to have a bigger presence in Japan. And I think this is cool, you know? I feel like a lot of people have been wanting to see Sony kind of do something like this. And we have Perfect Image, a member for 23 months. Thank you for that, buddy. He says it's crazy. Sony at 84 million PS5 sold. Ghost of Yotei selling 3.3 million. 119 million users compared to Nintendo's 120. It's crazy. Bungie at a loss. Black Friday going to be great for the Portal. GTA 6, I'll wait. All good. Yeah, we're going to talk about all that. Perfect Image. Sony also did talk about Bungie, and it's not looking good, man. It's not looking good. It's more than obvious at this point that Sony bought a dying studio, unfortunately, and there's nothing they can do to save it as of right now. You know, if Bungie's meant to be revived and rejuvenated, it has yet to be seen how and when or how that will happen. But we'll talk about that. Um, but yeah, this state of play really took me by surprise, guys. I have to say, I had no idea it was coming. I don't think anybody did. So when it comes to my expectations, I have zero expectations. Like I'm just thankful. Honestly, I remember yesterday I was like, man, well there we go. I know what Tuesday stream's going to be. Like cool, you know, a new state of play, sure. Could be the worst thing ever and I'm not going to be upset. Michael, what's going on, man? Only thing worrying was the CEO saying Helldivers 2 is doing well on Xbox. A sign they'll be porting more, I bet. I actually didn't come across that Capcom lawyer. Where I saw everybody posting about everything else. I didn't see that. That's news to me. I'll try to seek it out though. Because yeah, I was gonna say it would be weird if they didn't mention Helldivers on Xbox. I think Helldivers is starting to, I mean, I don't want to say die. That sounds dramatic, but I think it's starting to really slow down. Like I was checking the concurrent player count, and it seems it's still doing it's doing okay. Like it's healthy, I think, but it's not like I think its time in the sun is up, and now it's just going to kind of be like, you know, it'll be sustained by I think a loyal but smaller. You know, it's not going to do crazy numbers anymore. Is what I'm trying to say. Irfan, thank you for that link, buddy. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Irfan, once again, my producer. He's always got it ready to go. Yeah, that's true, MRPD, and I'm just curious to see what they do next with it. And Jake, thank you for that, buddy. I appreciate it. No, it's not going downhill. It's a I would say it's more of a natural. Like I always suspected that Helldivers 2, for as successful as it was for Sony, it's not like their Call of Duty. It's not their Minecraft. It's not their GTA Online. It's not their Fortnite. It's a live service game that will have its time in the sun, and then it will naturally start to come down, and then it'll probably level off at a place that seems appropriate for Helldivers 2, where you're going to have a loyal, relatively healthy player base where I think you'll always be able to find matches, you'll always be able to play, and there will always be some level of support. But, you know, I think it's time doing like hundreds of thousands of concurrent players. You know, the big moment is has come and passed, which is again, that's natural for most live service games that find any success. But I think that's why Sony's going to still push to try to find more success because Sony does want that, you know. Instant Messenger Sama with the super chat saying Kingdom Hearts 4 could be possible in 2026. 2027 is strictly for the 30-year anniversary of Final Fantasy VII Part 3. That's true. Yeah, I think Kingdom Hearts 4 is more likely to be like 2028 or something. I'm not going to lie. I don't think, like, I appreciate your optimism, you know, and never say never, but I think it's more likely that a game like Kingdom Hearts 4 will come later, much later, potentially. MRPD, you're saying if Bloodborne remake / remaster gets announced today, 50 bomb. Dude, could you imagine? Like, could you, I'm going to say there's a 99.99% chance that's not going to happen, but could you just imagine for a moment if Sony actually fucking were to announce a Bloodborne remaster at this state of play? Oh, man. They would break the internet. But you know, unfortunately the last we heard of Bloodborne is that nothing's going on with it. Nothing's going on. So Hanzo's not giving up. He says it lives, bro. It must. Yeah, Intergalactic. I saw people talking about that. Intergalactic is, in my opinion, like very obviously going to be a 2027 game, but I don't think it's going to be late 2027. That's true, MRPD. That is true. I mean, it's okay. We got to cope together, you know? We got to cope together. David, that's also true. Well, I mean, I don't know how you guys are feeling about the state of play. Like, I don't know if you guys are extremely excited or expecting disappointment, but it's like I was saying a moment ago. I can honestly say that this is the first state of play I'm going into with literally no expectation. And that's because I still am a little bit surprised that it's real and like it's happening. Like, oh wow, we're okay. There's a state of play today. Apparently, like there are 100% people right now who don't know there's a state of play. The amount of people yesterday that I ran into that did not know Sony announced a state of play, I'm like, that's crazy, man. It goes to show that having a certain amount of rumors and buildup definitely matters in some cases where it can help kind of build more interest and get more eyes on your show. But there was not a single whisper, man. And this really it's kind of nice actually. I have to say it's nice to get a show that's a genuine like, oh. And the next day too, like that's the craziest part is it's the next day. The very next day. So expecting Japanese games that won't appeal to everyone as they're mainly targeting Japan here. Yeah, I am. I will say that is one thing I guess that is safe to expect because it's a Japanese focused state of play. There will likely be certain games that are shown off that I'm going to have absolutely no interest in, but are very much going to be an attempt to appeal to, the Japanese audience. And that's true too. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, it's pretty standard affair, I would say, to go into a state of play and know that like not everything's going to appeal to you. In fact, a lot of what you see might not. But for me, what these state of plays have turned into, and I'm mainly talking about the ones I go into with expectation. What they turn into is if I could just get a couple things, I'll be happy. And I kind of feel the same way about this, right? Like I again, if this is the worst show I ever see, and I'm like, there wasn't a single thing I saw that I'm interested in, which I would find that hard to believe because it's going to be a long show. But if that's like the worst case scenario where like I didn't like that show at all, I didn't see a single thing I enjoyed or I'm excited for, I can't be upset because it's like, dude, this was not even supposed to happen. So, you know, I'll take whatever I can get. You know what I mean? If there's even just one thing that shows up that I think looks cool, Konami's gonna show up. Konami's gonna be like, "We're excited to announce the closure of Metal Gear Solid Delta Fox Hunt multiplayer. Thank you for playing, but it's over. We're shutting it down. Goodbye." And that's it. That's the announcement. Yo, do you think we could get Metal Gear Collection 2? The Metal Gear Collection Volume 2? That's another, I mean, the idea of Konami showing up is not, I mean, that to me, that seems very possible, you know? We have, we know Silent Hill is apparently launching on Xbox next week or in 2 weeks or something. And there's been talk of a DLC, Castlevania. New Castlevania leaked? Uh-oh. Wait, it leaked? Insider Gaming reports Fortnite is adding gambling in a future update. What? I don't see anything about Castlevania. I will say, oh, you're making it up. Well, no. See, the reason why that's believable, unknown, is because a Castlevania game did leak a couple years ago. VGC, who correctly leaked Metal Gear Delta and Silent Hill 2 Remake, they said another AAA Castlevania game was in development at Konami as well. But, you know, they didn't know when it was going to be announced. So actually, I'm not saying expect that, but it is a possibility. Stellar Blade 2, that would be a surprise. More Stellar Blade DLC. Silent Hill F's coming to Switch. Oh yeah, so when it comes to Sony, something Astrobot related, I think that has to be a given. Sony seems to look for any excuse to talk about Astrobot these days, which is great. You know, they should. Team Asobi is their Japan studio, so I'm not saying it'll be something big, but I would imagine something Astrobot related will be revealed today or discussed. Maybe a show. Maybe they'll do like an Astrobot animated series or something. They could make an announcement like that. They'll do a third controller. Do you think we're all getting ahead of ourselves? I'm thinking lots of pointless interviews, indie games, majority, maybe one big reveal. Well, I will caution people. I will caution people that the fact that this literally, again, came out of nowhere, and the fact that Sony does not normally do stated plays at this time, it might be a good idea. In fact, I will say it would be a good idea to just assume that there's a good chance you get nothing out of this. I'm normally not the type of person to tell people to go into shows like that, but considering the context and the circumstances surrounding this particular show, but you know, I don't want to like, I don't want. I'm not trying to be negative. You know, I think there's clearly going to be a decent amount of games shown for a 40-minute show, 45-minute show. So, you know, I would say if you're basing your expectations on previous stated plays, if you've seen stated plays where you walk away and you're like, there's at least one or two things I like, you know, I mean, I think I will say this, the only person that I think really truly should expect to be disappointed is the person that doesn't like Japanese or Asian games. If and there are those people. If you're not into those types of games at all, then there's a really high chance nothing here is going to appeal to you. What did the blog post yesterday say? We could read the blog post. So they say tune in for a special episode featuring announcements and updates on games from Japan and across Asia. So they say this Tuesday, we're bringing you a special episode of Stated Play, running for more than 40 minutes, focusing on games created in Japan and across Asia, alongside a few other exciting updates. From beloved series to distinctive indie creations, the show, hosted by voice actor Yuki Kaji, will be packed with great games, interviews, and new looks at anticipated titles. So they say interviews. That's interesting. I don't recall Sony ever highlighting interviews as something they had in there. Now, to be clear, like they've had people appear and talk about their games, you know, but not like interviews though. So I don't know what that's about. That's kind of interesting. And Corey the Legend Landiga, he comes in and he does what he does.
I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be.
He drops 5 membership gifts for you guys and gets this thing started today. So, Corey, thank you so much for that, buddy. Appreciate that consistency, man. He's always here with that 5 bomb. The interview is definitely them referring to Marvel Tokon, you think? Well, let's look at the other end of the spectrum. Let's fantasize for a little bit. You know, we got to go through all the motions here today. What if there's going to be a PlayStation exclusive From Software game announced? Venom game, shadow drop tomorrow. It ain't even Japanese, bro. I'm just saying, there's been rumors for years about some kind of like, I don't know, From Software PS5 exclusive, and Raven X Zero comes in. Raven wants to keep the member train going. He drops another 5 member gifts for you guys. Let's get some W's in the chat for Corey and Raven, bringing us up to 10 members on the day. Raven, thank you for that, buddy.
This is an incredibly exciting time for PlayStation.
Herman says so, bro. Herman says it. Dark Souls, dude, don't even joke about Dark Souls 4, buddy. All right? Joe Mac, don't even joke about Dark Souls 4. Do you know how much I would lose my shit? I love Dark Souls, dude. Martial Arts, a member for 9 months, says, due to the voice actor host, I'm calling a Final Fantasy 13 Trilogy Remaster bundle. Well, I mean, there has to be something Final Fantasy here today. You're calling a FF13 Trilogy Remaster bundle. MBG, this is their first Japan stated play. They might go big. I don't know, man. Yeah, maybe we should just hype ourselves up. Some Fizzant info. Well, like I said, Kojima was visiting PlayStation Studios. He was talking with Herman Hulst recently. He visited Guerrilla Games, so we don't know what that's about. He doesn't really normally go to studios. I mean, Kojima's always like traveling and stuff, but as far as I'm aware, he doesn't usually stop at game studios that often. No, I don't think we're gonna get anything God of War related because that's a Western IP, and I don't know. You know, Japanese studios never handled God of War. Laman says, Garrett, we're going to have an incredible showcase. Oh, did he? MRPD, why did I completely miss that? You're saying he went to Naughty Dog a few months back and played Intergalactic? Bruh. I had no idea. Well, you know, something I will tell you guys is, check this out. There have been persistent rumors, by the way, that like Dark Souls 3 remastered is a thing. 11 months ago, it was posted. Let me see. It says Dark Souls 3 remaster currently in development, says Insider. Who was the person who stated this, though? According to Nick Baker, Dark Souls 3 Remastered is currently in the works. So I'm just bringing this up because this was rumored almost a year ago, and it still hasn't. If it's real, it still hasn't been announced. That could be something that shows up today. I don't know how much hype there would be for that. I love Dark Souls, so if a Dark Souls 3 remaster shows up, I'll be hyped for that. I'm not gonna lie. I love Dark Souls, dude, so much. I was even thinking about going back and playing Dark Souls 1 again. I miss those games. But saying Dark Souls 3, it does not need a remaster. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know that that's like the first game that comes to mind when you think about a game that needs to be remastered, but any excuse to like, you know, I don't know, I'd just be hyped to see Dark Souls being talked about again, to be honest. MVG, remember there was talk about him letting others use his game engine? From Software will be there, but it's only going to be for Night Rain's DLC. Oh, yeah, true. True. Yeah, they did talk about supporting Elden Ring Night Rain. Garrett, you're saying, why would they remaster Dark Souls and not Bloodborne? Imagine the outrage. I do not know what's going on with Bloodborne, man. I'm telling you, there's something really strange with this property because nothing is making sense when it comes to Bloodborne. Corey says, I'm humble enough to admit my parry game ain't even close to Diago's? Daigo's? I don't know how you say that. Project Awakening? Yo, Project Awake. I haven't talked about that game or heard about that game in literally years. Yo, if Project Awakening shows up, that would be wild. That would be a genuine surprise. That was a game that was announced during the PS4 generation. And it was even discussed that maybe it could end up being a PS5 game. And we were talking about it at the beginning of this generation, and it just never showed up. It just disappeared. So if that were to pop up, man, that would be like, whoa. Irfin says, MBG, if I see anything Devil May Cry related, I'll jump out the window. Damn. I mean, I feel like it's safe to assume Capcom will show up. They have Pragmata. I don't know if it'll be anything Devil May Cry related, but they have Pragmata, they have Resident Evil 9, they have Onimusha. They have basically 3 AAA games in rotation right now. There's also Monster Hunter Wilds, which they could announce an update for. Saying Sony was unhappy with Bloodborne sales. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's possible. Corey's yelling, I was only giving an example. Yeah, a lot of people are thinking we're going to get a Marvel Tokon update. Maybe some new characters announced. No, please, no Monster Hunter. They take up almost half the stream. It's going to happen. Sounds like, we heard he wanted more Monster Hunter. Check this out. There is another report here. So this is on the Gaming Leaks and Rumor subreddit, and I don't think it has anything to do with PlayStation, but I just wanted to mention it to you guys because there's only one game that comes to mind. But it says, Special Nick says, quote, if what I was just DM'd is actually true, and it's a big if, next week GTA 6 could actually have its thunder stolen on the hype scale, LMAO. There's only one answer to that, guys. So, like, he's saying that if what he's being told, there's going to be an announcement next week that will eclipse the hype levels for GTA 6. And at first I was like, there's nothing that can do that. But then I realized actually there is one thing. Abandoned's back, baby. Abandoned is coming back. Yeah, no, we're talking about Half-Life 3. I don't know though. I'm not convinced. I have to. Red Dead Redemption 3. Rockstar's like, we're the only ones. Half-Life 3 is the only game that comes to mind that could eclipse the hype for GTA 6. But even then, I'm not fully convinced it would be able to truly eclipse it. Concord 2. But there's been some talk that next week, apparently, I don't know. Brace yourselves. Apparently, Half-Life 3 is going to get announced next week. So they have no impact on console. Well, that's the thing. Don't they have like their own console type of device they're making, right? Yo, is Valve going to come out and be like, here's Half-Life 3 exclusive to PC and our Steam console? Sony's going to be left out. We had Titus coming in, a member for 23 months. Thank you, Titus, at Play Has No Limits. Says, MBG, couldn't it be that the State of Play got announced on such short notice because of the delay of GTA 6? and these games now have release dates, I won't be able to watch it because of work early. I'm sorry to hear you won't be able to tune in, Titus, but it's an interesting theory. I'm going to say no. I don't think so. I don't think so because the timing, it's too close to the delay announcement. Like, there's no way Sony could have scrambled that rapidly. Could they have maybe tweaked a couple things in the show? Perhaps. I think that is maybe possible, but yeah, I don't know. That is kind of funny, though. That would explain why there were no leaks. Jake, interesting. But yeah, Titus, I don't know. I do feel like this is a genuine surprise announcement. I think it probably has more to do with the fact that it's a Japanese focused state of play. You would, it's not even an assumption, but they pretty much make it known that all of these games are going to be Asian. They're going to be Japanese titles, Japanese development teams, Asian-based titles and development teams. There would have to be leaks coming from that segment of gaming, and now, to be fair, we do get leaks for Japanese games all the time, but I don't know. This has been oddly, this went suspiciously under the radar, like to a degree that I've never seen before. I've seen people speculating that this means one of two things. This means it's because it's going to be so inconsequential that it's not even worth leaking anything. I don't agree with that. Only because, dude, even when we've gotten just mid to okay state of plays, we've seen tiny things leaked. People will still talk about it. If there's something to be leaked, it'll be leaked. Doesn't matter how big or how insignificant. It's either that or this state of play is actually going to be so big that this is like Sony will end your life. They'll murder you if you leak this. I don't know. It's one or the other, man. And I'm not going to tell you which side I'm leaning on. I'm just going to tell you to make up your own mind in terms of what you want to expect. Just don't blame me. All right. I didn't know this was happening either. We have Who the Hell is Carlos with a $2 super chat saying, my portal just arrived. The way I jumped out of bed. Bro snapped his back. Carlos, calm down. No, enjoy it, man. Let me know what you think of it. You have to let me know, bro. I've been thinking about getting one very soon. And Be A Med comes in out of nowhere. We got Be A Med coming in, dropping a 10 bomb on you guys. 10 more memberships gifted to bring us up to 20 members. I need to see some W's in the chat for Be A Med. BA Med. He came in. He dropped 10. He brought us to 20. Let's see. I'll give him a...
PlayStation has been defining the gaming industry for the past 3 decades.
There you go. We got some Hideaki Nishino up in here hyping you up. I wonder if he'll show up today. Guys, 5 more memberships, and we will be able to feed the beast. We'll be able to give Boss and Luna some treats. So we're now at 20, almost at the halfway point for the 50 mark. Thank you, guys. And Be A Med, you used your milestone chat. I've been a member for 22 months. Thank you for that. You're saying just bought our first house on Halloween, sending some gift subs to celebrate. Well, thank you so much for that, buddy. And congratulations. That's a big deal, man. Your first house. Very big deal. Well, I'm happy for you, bro. And on Halloween, too. Be a good time to... did you decorate it? Did you have time to decorate? Because, I mean, moving in can be hectic, you know? Well, I don't even know if you're moved in yet. You're saying you bought it on Halloween. But that's cool, man. That's one of the things that Mrs. MBG was so excited for when we got our house, being able to actually decorate, you know, like outside and stuff. She loves decorating. You didn't have time. Well, you'll have plenty of time going forward, man. But it's a big deal, man. Congratulations. And thank you for, again, dropping some gifted memberships, man, to celebrate. You definitely did have to do that. I appreciate the generosity. And we also have Michael Lynch with the $5 super chat saying, what do you mean nothing makes sense with Bloodborne right now? It makes sense that a remake would show up at the launch of the PS6. I don't know why I'm reading your super chat like that, Michael. I just felt like that was kind of the energy that you were bringing to the table with that chat. I guess I just mean like everything we've heard about it officially has not made sense. I agree with you 100% that a Bloodborne remake being a launch title for the PS6, I mean, that to me, that's like a no-brainer. But anytime Miyazaki talked about it, he's expressed interest in wanting to do more. And then he would say, but that's up to Sony. Sony refuses to talk about it, but then makes an investment into From Software, and talks about them wanting to do more with them, knowing that they own the Bloodborne and Demon Souls IP. And then on the leaker side of things, you have, what was it, Jeff Grubb, who came out and said that I've done some digging, and as far as I'm aware, nothing is happening with Bloodborne. There's no movement with Bloodborne. And he's not the only person to say that. So I'm just confused in that, like, there seems to be all these different conflicting things where Sony wants to work with From Software / Miyazaki wants to do more with Bloodborne, but then we're hearing that nothing's actually happening with Bloodborne. So I'm like, what's going on? But I do agree with you, Michael, 100% that Sony, getting From Software on board with a Bloodborne remake for the PS6 would make the most sense. Chasing Everything says, smack that like button. Yeah, guys, make sure you hit that like button. We're at 90 likes if you're excited for the state of play or you just enjoy hanging out here. Wait, Gaming Survivor, what are you saying here? People, hold on. I'm going to replay that message, Josh, in just a second. I have a Gaming Survivor saying people in a PlayStation chat buy houses. People in an Xbox channel chat can't even afford a new pair of pants. Xbox sucks. Gaming Survivor, bro, what? That level of aggression for no reason whatsoever. For no reason whatsoever. Like, totally unprovoked.
With the Extend PS5 Gen comments today on the delay of GTA 6. I think we are cooking. PS6 2029 baby. Put your hands together, dance with me, MBG let's go.
Josh, I don't agree, bro. I don't agree. We're going to talk about that. You're saying PlayStation 6 2029. I don't agree. I don't agree. I'm telling you. People need to buckle up if they're not ready. The PS6 is coming in 2027, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not, Josh, Sony's going to give you that PS6, and you're going to buy it. And you know you are. I know you are. We both know you are. We both know I am. You don't have to wait till 2029. No, I'm going to talk about that situation. I understand why you're saying that, though. Sony did say that we're at the halfway point of the PS5, but I think some people might be misinterpreting what Sony really means here. So we'll talk about that when we're finished talking about the state of play. Yeah, that's true too, Irfan. Guys, by the way, yeah, we're at 20 members. I'm gonna push the chat a little bit here. Let's try to get 5 more. Okay, let's try to get. I mean, obviously, I want to get to 50, but for right now, let's try to get 5 more so I can give Boss and Luna their treats. Because in case you haven't noticed, I had to kind of keep Boss out of the room because he's getting so crazy these days. I'm not kidding. Like, he's actually becoming unhinged. So the sooner we can get this boy his treats, the sooner I can relax a little bit and not have to worry about the type of destruction he may cause. He's cold today too. I noticed. I don't know why, boss. He's like cold. He was like laying on the heated blanket. And Jack Kinetic does it. Jack, thank you so much, buddy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Jack, he comes in clutch with 5 more memberships gifted, and he takes us to the 25 mark.
Boasty me. It's time to feed the beast.
Boss is getting really upset out there. So I'm going to let him in. We're going to give him and Luna some treats. Jack Kinetic does it. Thank you again, buddy. I appreciate it. Let me go get him. I need to beat his butt with rolled up newspaper. That won't work. He doesn't care. Here you go, boss. Luna, I'll give you some next, all right? Whoa. Whoa, what just happened? What the hell? Huh. It's almost like God just gave me this cat beating stick. No, I'm just kidding. You think rolled up newspaper? I need to use this. No, really though. How the hell did this fall down? I guess I'll just leave it over here. It's my boss beating stick. Boy's gonna learn. No, but thank you guys again for getting us to 25 members. As we go throughout the stream, we'll see if we can get that to 50. And we will have members lounges coming up this week. We're going to have a morning with the misses this Friday. So if you do get gifted a membership, obviously thank whoever gifted it to you, but make sure you tune into some of that members only content, or you can go check out some of the previous members only content. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the state of play, I don't think anything actually leaked yet. This is weird, man. Like, not a single thing for this state of play has leaked. This is impressive. I don't think I've ever seen this before. I've been covering every state of play since they became a thing, and this might be the first time. Now, we still have like 4 hours until the show actually airs, but this may be the first time we've ever seen a state of play where not a single announcement, a single game. The closest thing I could say we have, the closest thing we have to a leak, maybe a Silent Hill F last gen version, perhaps, or maybe the Silent Hill 2 remake DLC. But Jack, you said today, I heard I don't have to leave my house. No games, no leaks. It's all DLC in one live service game. Dude, I mean, you know what? What if this is like literally the worst state of play ever? Like, it's so bad, we're like, oh my God. Like, my expectations were low, but holy shit. It could be real bad. We need to prepare. We need to mentally prepare for that possibility. The state of play is in 4 hours. 4 hours. No, they're fully in Japanese without subtitles. No, they'll have subtitles. That is interesting though, isn't it? Like, the whole thing is in Japanese. Again, this is very intentional. Sony clearly is beginning to take the Japanese market much more seriously now. Josh says, Japanese games are actually good, so that won't happen. I agree. Some of my favorite games ever are Japanese developed games. So actually, a lot of my favorite franchises are Japanese franchises, you know? And I tend to forget that. Well, I don't forget it, but it's just like I don't think about it, where it's like Metal Gear Solid, Japanese. Dark Souls, Japanese. Resident Evil, Japanese. It's like, wow, okay. Yeah. I'm sure there's more. 40-minute interview. Yeah, that's all it's going to be. Japan is number one for a reason. For 40 years, man. You ready? Got to give Luna her treats, too. Silent Hill, of course. Yeah. Here you go, Luna. She doesn't like when I pet her when she's trying to eat her snacks. 99% of fighting games are Japanese. Matthew, you're saying Asian developers are kind of kicking the West ass. You do want to see Horizon multiplayer at some point? The more I think about it, I'm leaning towards this Horizon multiplayer will probably be announced at it'll probably be announced at this upcoming what's it called, G Star or something. I have to readjust my camera for a second here because I have to raise this up. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure that announcing something Horizon related at your Japan focused state of play. I don't know that that's the right move from Sony, to be honest. Even if it is developed by a Korean studio, because I mean Horizon, it just doesn't feel like Horizon doesn't feel like it belongs in a Japanese focused state of play. You know, it just doesn't feel right. Any leaks on Twitter about what they may show? I haven't seen anything, dude. And I've been perusing. And I haven't seen anything leak. I'm seeing people make predictions. Phantom Blade Zero, that's a big one I didn't mention. That's a big one, yeah. So Phantom Blade Zero is a game that a lot of people would like to see. And this would be the perfect time. We need a release date. Kane Z7 with a $2 super chat says, I love the Illuminati hat in MBG. State of play today is going to rock. Illuminati hat. Yeah, it's supposed to, if you stare into it, it's supposed to convince you to drop more member gifts and super chats. Just kidding. It's actually it's a Soundgarden hat. Bad motor finger. But I can see if you're not familiar with the design, it definitely looks like it could be like an Illuminati type symbol. You've heard rumors of Bloodborne 2. Don't believe the hype, man. Easy with the Bloodborne rumors. People have been talking. Guys are talking about Bloodborne too much. I'm seeing it brought up too much. Yeah, I'm looking now to see if anything has leaked. And no, man. This is definitely. This is a first. There's no leaks. There's no rumors. We have no idea. We have. I mean, this is truly the first time I think we're going into a state of play where we have absolutely not an inkling of what to expect. Death Stranding 3, lock it in. Death Stranding 3. Well, I'm gonna Gaming Star, I can't believe you made that meme, bro. Like, I was so disappointed in myself. I'm like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Sons, a member for 10 months, says, bring out the mullet, big dog. The mullet. Do I have to break out the mullet? If Metal Gear shows up, maybe. We do a goal of 100 members. We hit 100 members, I'll break the mullet out. Can we get all of the state of plays in Japan? I love not being spoiled to these events. It is nice. It is nice, yeah. It's very unusual. And Metal Gear Ray, A member for 50 months. Thank you for the long time support, Ray. He says, it should be this way. It makes them more exciting not to know. Because if we know, it takes away from the show and the reveal. Because we already knew that. It's very true. That's why I'm going to be... It's going to be really exciting if there is some exciting announcements. Because they're going to come in out of nowhere. And I can't remember the last time I experienced that. You know? These days, it does feel like practically everything leaks ahead of time. So if they do have some solid announcements, exciting announcements, again, I knew Sony was doing their earnings today. And so when I was thinking yesterday, what are we going to discuss tomorrow? I was like, we'll talk about their earnings report. So when I saw the state of play announcement, I'm like again, it was one of these things where I'm like, wait, is that real? Or is that made up? And it's like, no, that's real. There's a blog post about it. I'm like, oh. And Josh Z with a $5 super chat says, rant about Expedition 33 being snubbed in the video game category at the Grammys. What the F do they think they're doing? BS. Someone paid to block their nomination. I saw some people talking about that, Josh. There were definitely some people very upset that it seemingly got snubbed. Luckily, I don't watch the Grammys, so I wasn't even really aware of what was going on. But I think the next day, people in my chat were letting me know. Yeah, it's definitely deserving. It's definitely deserving of a nomination, and certainly probably winning, because the music of Clair Obscur is fantastic. Some of the best. So I know how passionate you are about that game, Josh. I'd like to see that passion. We'll see, though. I have a feeling Clair Obscur is going to win a lot of awards at the Game Awards next month. I think it's going to take Game of the Year. I do. Death Stranding's still my personal Game of the Year, but Clair Obscur, it would be great to see them win. And it's still one of the best games I played all year, hands down. So I would be very happy to see Clair Obscur win Game of the Year. Carl, you're saying they even hired a top Japanese voice actor to host. That is something big. It's like Robert Downey Jr. doing a state of play. Is it really? Is it exactly that though? Are they comparable? That would be so weird. Robert Downey Jr. hosting a state of play. I wouldn't know what to expect. Kane Z7 with a super chat says, speaking of Bloodborne, it looks obvious that Sony is releasing Bloodborne Remake for the PS6 as a release title. They won't show anything related before that. We were just talking about that, Kane. I'm not sure. I'm not so sure, Kane. Just because something doesn't get nominated doesn't mean it's a conspiracy. If that was the case, Microsoft could have paid for awards. Yeah, right. That's like the biggest, at least in gaming, that's the biggest tell that you can't pay to win these things, bro. Because if you could, Microsoft definitely would have done something at this point. Something. And we have Michael Lynch with a $5 super chat saying, I would love to see a remake of Ghost and Goblins with modern visuals and updated controls. Ghost and Goblins. Why is this game not ringing a bell? This is an old one. Ghost and Goblins. Known as Makimura in Japan, is a 1985 platform game developed, and published by Capcom for arcades. It is the first game in the franchise. It has since been ported to numerous home platforms. Huh. I'm not familiar with this title. I feel like I've heard it before. Certainly never played it, though. Ghost and Goblins. Interesting. Well, I mean, dude, it's a Japanese game. It's, developed and published by Capcom. I mean, I don't, that's very specific, Michael. It's very specific. And it says it's a franchise, so I don't know what the last game was they made, but that would be a very random announcement, you know? No, I don't think I've ever played Ghosts and Goblins. You're saying it's really difficult? There was also Ghouls and Ghosts. Ghouls and Goblins is my first Bloodborne game. Yeah, it seems like it's kind of before my time. Hmm. Yeah, we're going to talk about that next, Lady Gamer. Yo, how are you going to be disappointed in me that I didn't play this? This game came out in 1985, bro. Give me a break. I was born in 1993. What do you want from me? Sony needs to get into theme parks? Isn't there like an Uncharted ride or something? Wabu Dude says, all I want is Final Fantasy IX Remake to finally be shown. Wasn't there a rumor that that was shelved? Wabu Dude? I'm not trying to kill your dreams right now, man, but I could have swore we heard that it was shelved. That's a ride, not a park, MBG. Get it right. We need a whole PlayStation theme park, man. Yo, I'd go to... I don't know if I'd go to a PlayStation theme park. I'm not going to lie. Like, it's cool. Like, oh, PlayStation. I like PlayStation, but, dude, I don't know if I'm going to, like, go to a freaking theme park. You know? Maybe. I don't know. They'll make one eventually. Garrett's like, what? This is blasphemy, MBG. How dare you? Every day in your head is a PlayStation theme park. Well, we're gonna no, don't block me, Garrett. We're gonna shift topics here. All right. I'm not gonna talk anymore about the state of play. I mean, it's okay if we get super chats about them and stuff. I'll still talk about it if you super chat about it. But I want to go over some of these other topics because I know you guys are interested to hear about these as well. And the first thing we're going to start with is Ghost of Yotei sales as well as PS5 sales numbers. A lot of people have been curious what's going on with PlayStation 5. Is it, we've talked extensively, understandably, because it's been making the headlines. We've talked extensively about what's been going on with Xbox and how, I mean, their sales have like plummeted. We've talked somewhat about the Switch 2 and how it's breaking records and off to an incredibly strong start. And when it comes to the PS5, there's kind of been this question that's been building up of like, is it going to continue to do well? Is it going to continue to pace with the PS4? Is it going to hit 100 million, or is it going to hit some kind of wall? Is the fact that we're seeing Xbox sales tank so bad, is that a sign that maybe PlayStation's next, or console sales in general are starting to wane and slow down? And also, Ghost of Yotei. People have been very curious about whether or not Ghost of Yotei is actually a success. Is it a failure? Is it true? All these different videos you see with the titles making it seem like this game has failed and is struggling. Is it true? Well, we're going to go over that. So, Sony's earnings came out, and the first thing is it was announced that the PlayStation 5 has sold 84.2 million units. 84.2 million. For those wondering, it's pretty much pacing exactly the same as the PlayStation 4, time aligned. So, to add to this, the PS5 sold 3.9 million units. By the way, this is for PlayStation's Q2 fiscal 2025. So, 3.9 million units sold in Q2. Lifetime PS5 sales units are 84.2 million. Full game software unit sales are at 80.3 million for the quarter. First party software, 6.3 million. Digital download ratio, 72%. And PSN monthly active users, 119 million. On top of this, Sony announced that Ghost of Yotei surpassed 3.3 million units sold. And they basically celebrated this as a big success. They emphasized that Ghost of Yotei, just like Ghost of Tsushima, is a big success for them and is doing very well. So this is where things get interesting because, I mean, unsurprisingly, I guess we could say, unsurprisingly, there are people who think that 3.3 million sales in a month is not good for a AAA title. Gaming Survivor, a member for 23 months, says, "What you gonna do, brother? What you gonna do? What you gonna do, brother? What you gonna do when Totokism runs wild at the state of play on you?" I mean, dude, this is a true Totokism state of play, right? Oh yeah, brother. I'm sorry. I'm just imagining. Oh, dude, I'm imagining like Macho Man Randy Savage hosting a Japanese state of play, speaking Japanese with that voice. You know, I can't speak Japanese, nor am I even going to try, but just imagine that. Just imagine that. We wouldn't be able to handle that greatness. That would be too much. Macho Man Randy Totoki? That's even more cursed. Hiroki Totoki hosting the state of play, cosplaying as Randy Savage. Bro, do the whole rest of the stream in that voice. It's hard to do that voice. It hurts. That would be so funny, though. Ghost of Yotei selling 3.3 million units. It's a huge success, brother. Do you guys ever hear the video of it's like it's just the breaths of Macho Man Randy Savage in between every sentence he speaks? It's like one of the most cursed but funniest videos ever. Also, I watched a video yesterday that made me laugh so hard I was actually crying. Like, Mrs. MBG thought I was actually crying. Do you guys listen? Do you guys know the video of Indibininging? Come on, you guys got to know this one. If you know, you know. And I came across this video yesterday, and it's like 30 seconds long, and I have not laughed that hard. See, nobody in the chat is responding, which is making me think I'm gonna have to bring it up. You had to be there. Dude, this is like an older video, I think. Gonna take a little. We're gonna deviate for just a moment. We are gonna come back to this topic. It's not gonna be long. In the beninging. Yo, it says I'm buffering. Did I just kill my stream? Are we good? I can't tell. I'll play it real quick. Hold on. There's a little side quest. Hold on. Let me get my head out of the way. It's a short video. Maybe there's 2 videos that we watch. Is there lag, guys? Are we okay? It froze, but we're good now. Yeah, it's because YouTube's detecting. They're like, he's getting off topic. We have to bring him back. All right, hold on. I'm dragging this out longer than it needs to be. This video was uploaded 7 years ago, by the way, so this is not like TikTok brain rot. But I can't, dude. I saw this yesterday and I fucking died, dude. I could not stop laughing.
Genesis 1, verse 1. In the beginning, in the beginning, yeah, in the
Listen properly.
in the beginning, yeah, in the beginning, in the beginning, in the beginning, Genesis.
Dude, like, it's... Wait, what's wrong with the audio? Sons, what's wrong with the audio? No, dude, I know it's like he's not... It's the fact he won't give up. He won't give up, man. Like, in the beginning... And the comments are fucking gold, too. But I randomly came across this last night, and I was in tears, man. Like, you ever laugh so hard you think you might die? That was me last night. I'm like, dude, my heart is pounding out of my chest. I need to calm down. That went on for 7 minutes. Irfan, what is this, bro? I'm afraid to find out what this is. Tell me what it is before I open it. He's trying so hard. Our pastor did this joke last Sunday and nobody understood it. The pain is real. He's stuck in the beninging. It's the listen properly in the background for me. It's going to take him forever to read that Bible. No, it's not AI. This is like from 7 years ago. My friend, what's your Wi-Fi password? My Wi-Fi password. This is what the back of the router would sound like if it could talk. It's too good, man.
1, verse 1. In the beginning, in the beginning, yeah, in the
Listen properly.
in the beginning, yeah, in the beginning, in the beginning, in the beginning.
Okay, I need to stop, dude. It's gonna happen again. I need to walk away from this. I'm gonna start crying again, dude. Oh, it's so funny. Oh, yeah, that's right. And he starts like dancing around a little bit. I don't know why he did, like. I'm sorry. In the beginning, PlayStation 5, you couldn't buy it. Or let me see here. Wait, hold on. Ashton, the audio is still out for you? Dude, there are some people saying the audio is still not working for them. How? Please watch Italian Brain Rot. I already know all about Italian Brain Rot, bro. Please. I don't want to see any more. I lost so many viewers. Oh my God. See what happens when I try to have fun? It should be a soundbite. Dude, it should be. This is what happens. I try to have a little fun and I lose all my viewers. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe it's because there was an audio glitch. A lot of people were saying they were having audio issues. My audio's been good since the beginning. I don't know why this is funny. Trump sounds like that every day. Dude, I think what makes it funny is he wouldn't move past it. Like, he had to get it right, and no matter how many times he tried, he just couldn't get it right. I'm like, that's some funny shit, man. That is some funny shit. I should just make my 5-minute intro just that on loop. You're saying, but that actually isn't real. It's a voiceover. You can see it if you look at his lips. Don't tell me that, Miguel. Don't tell me that. No, don't ruin this for me. That is real. That is real. It's real to me, damn it. All right, there's only one other video. Irfan, I'm going to have to wait on your video because there's one other that has to take priority. This is really short, too. After I show you this one, we'll get back to... Jesus, man. We'll get back to talking about actual PlayStation topics, but... hold on. Let's just take a second. This one's really short. It's only like 15 seconds.
Is enough to get me to the boiling point.
And that's it. I think that needs to be a soundbite. I think that needs to be a fucking soundbite, too. That's too good, man. When you tune into the state of play and nothing is shown, it's just a long interview. Oh, man. I'm going to have to make that a soundbite. That one's too good. All right. How do I recover from this one, guys? Got to bounce back. It's like nothing even happened. It's like nothing. That side quest over. Side quest completed. Good job. We're back on the golden path now. Oh boy.
Is enough to get me to the boiling point.
All right, guys, there's I kid you not, like, we're gonna get back on topic, but there's another video being recommended to me next to this Randy Savage one, literally just titled "Biggest Fart Ever." Like, okay, I've entered some kind of algorithm, and I'm scared. The one no reeler, dude, that's amazing. That's amazing. The one no reeler, he came into the stream and that was the audio he heard. There wasn't even anything on screen. He came into the stream and that's all he heard. And he's like, what's going on? What did I miss? It's enough to get me to the boiling point. That's crazy. Yeah, we lost another 23 viewers, man. They'll be back. They'll be back. They'll come back. They're like, I gotta leave. I don't know what's going on. You can't even blame the super chats for this derailing, bro. I know. Well, you know what? Listen. It's, if anything, it's like a little break in between topics. Okay. You know, we spend an hour talking about the state of play, what may or may not be shown. Irfan, I'm sorry, bro. What is your video of? You know, I have to take a little break, learn about In the Beninging. Got to hear some Macho Man Randy Savage inhales, and then back on track. Topic number 2. Garrett wants to block me. We are going to get back on track, though. All right. So about that state of play. All right. Well, we do have to continue with some of the information that came out from Sony today. All right. Where was I? Okay. I lost it. Hold on. Yeah, so let's get back on track here. Thank you for humoring me. But let's talk about Ghost of Yotei sales. So Ghost of Yotei officially sold 3.3 million copies by November 2nd. So that's exactly 1 month of it being on sale, 3.3 million. There are some people who believe that this is not good. There are some people that believe that this is underwhelming and that it's like disappointing. And I'll be honest, man, like I feel like this is where you're truly going to begin to see people make it. I mean, I feel like some of them have already made it obvious, but you're really going to start to see people where this has nothing to do with being fair and being rational. You're going to see people that just clearly want this game. Like, they desperately want it to fail to a point where they're willing to even deny reality. And that's, kind of sad. We see that with different things all the time. But regardless of how you feel about this game, and this is the important part, regardless of how you feel about this game, 3.3 million sold for a AAA game in 1 month is not bad, especially when it's on one platform. That is actually, I would say, for pretty much every video game publisher, that would be considered a success. I don't really know what video game publisher would view that as not good enough, or maybe Square Enix. Maybe you could see Square Enix saying it's not good enough, but most video game publishers, considering the type of game it is. But the real question that people want to know is, how does this compare to Ghost of Tsushima, right? Like, what did Ghost of Tsushima do in the same time period? Well, we actually do have that information. But there is something that's very important to keep in mind when we go over this information, and that is the fact that Ghost of Tsushima launched to a bigger install base. Ghost of Tsushima launched to an install base of over 100 million PS4s. So we do need to be fair here and look at the fact that Ghost of Yotei is launching to not a massively smaller install base, but a smaller install base nonetheless. Probably by about like 16, 17 million units, which is not an inconsequential amount at all. So when we look at the data for Ghost of Tsushima, by comparison, Ghost of Tsushima sold 2.4 million units in its first 3 days, and it hit 5 million units sold in 4 months. And then by January 2022, it sold 8 million, and then the latest update we got was September 2024 with 13 million units sold for Ghost of Tsushima. But the two big ones here are 2.4 million in 3 days, 5 million in 4 months. If you look at the fact that it took Ghost of Tsushima about 4 months to accumulate another 2.5 million sales, 2.6 million sales to get to that 5 million. And then you look at the fact that Ghost of Yotei in 1 month is at 3.3 million. It seems like Ghost of Yotei is literally tracking the exact same way as Tsushima is. Like, it seems like it's tracking exactly the same. Like, by the time we get to the 4 month period, so October 2nd, November, December, January, so like February, by the first or second week of February, this game will probably be at around 5 million, or very close to it. So, will it go on? The bigger question I have about Yotei is if it's going to go on to have the same type of tail as Tsushima. Because Tsushima, I mean, it hitting 13 million, in 4 years is really good. 4.5 years, that's really, really good. I don't know if Yotei could hit that, but if it has the same type of tail, it could be, it could end up doing exactly the same. And that's true too. Yeah, Legends hasn't happened yet. So, I mean, that'll probably give it a little bit of a boost. We don't know if there will be some kind of PS6 update when the PS6 comes out, perhaps. But, I think that this is a far cry from... And look, I'm not trying to be defensive because it doesn't matter. I love to see well-made single-player games do well. I like to see that because it's reassuring, right? We don't want to see, in my opinion, we definitely don't want to see well-made single-player games fail or do poorly. Saying there's an affluent core of gamers, that 3 million within that set, they have every console and PC and a PC too. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I don't know if they're going to do like a DLC for Yotei like they did for Tsushima. I'm sure that helped sales for it as well. And then Tsushima got a director's cut. So I have no doubt that there's going to be more they do with Yotei to help, pump up its sales numbers. But I just think, for the people who really thought this game was failing, I mean, I thought that was foolish to begin with. I was saying like there's a chance like it's not selling as well. Maybe it's selling a little bit softer. I didn't think it failed though. I did go out of my way to say that in order for Yotei to fail, it would have to do, especially knowing the budget is on the lower side for PlayStation Studios titles. No, I don't think MGS Delta failed. I think MGS Delta did well. I think it sold almost 2 million. And that's what's crazy, right? Is like that's considered a success for Konami. But Sony, keep in mind, Sony felt confident enough in their sales numbers of Ghost of Yotei to announce them to shareholders at their earnings and to deem it a big success. That's what Sony said during their earnings. So I feel like this pretty much, destroys, if not destroys, it just ends the conversation of like, is Ghost of Yotei a failure or not? And I won't lie, man, I've seen some bizarre replies. Like I posted this on my Twitter and like this person said Ghost of Tsushima sold 2.4 million in 3 days and Ghost of Yotei only sold 3 million in a month. Yeesh. And it's like, I don't think you understand that by 1 month, Tsushima was probably at the same exact spot. Like this is where I feel like, it's fine that people want to comment on this, but I just wish that more people had a better understanding of like Ghost of Tsushima, 2.4 million in 3 days, 5 million in 4 months. Ghost of Yotei, 3.3 million in 30 days, in 1 month. It's like if you kind of break that down, it's like they're tracking exactly the same. And the thing that's more impressive about Yotei, like I said, again, not trying to come off defensive, but just trying to point out some of the facts here. What's more impressive about Yotei is it's doing this with a lower install base, So I just, I understand that there are people that want this game to fail. There's some people who are just strangely against it. Like it's fine to not care about it and be indifferent to it, but there are people who like genuinely want to see it like tank. Those people I think are going to have a hard time accepting that, dude. It's on track to do at least as well, at least for like the first year sales. It's on track to do as well as Tsushima. You're saying, Whiskey, you're saying that's $230 million. What's that? 3.5 times the budget. Yeah, that's another thing that's worth pointing out is like Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotei are kind of known for having much leaner budgets. I mean, they're not the studio that's inflating their games to $200 million, $250 million. Ghost of Tsushima was about $60 million. I'm not sure if that counts marketing. I guess the assumption is it is. That's on the low side. I would assume that doesn't count marketing. That's pretty low. But Nate Fox, the director at Sucker Punch, confirmed that the budget of Yotei is about the same. So with that in mind, it seems like they're getting a very similar return. And at the end of the day, when it comes to Sony from a business and financial standpoint, that's all they want to see from their studios. They want to see their studios make money and do well in that regard. And yeah, man, I'm not surprised. So like I said, Ghost of Yotei is a very well made game. It's an enjoyable game. It's while I do find it waning a little bit as I'm getting the platinum, the story that's there, the characters, the the scenery, the fluidity of it, the beauty of it, the combat, the upgrade system, it's all really good. And I just think that at the end of the day, Sucker Punch, when it comes to both Ghost of Tsushima and Ghost of Yotei, they made a very well made AAA game. So they'll want Intergalactic to do better than that, though. Oh, yeah, dude, Intergalactic's going to be fascinating. Big Nabs. That's going to be a fascinating one to watch because, yeah, the budget of Intergalactic, I think, is like $300 million or $250 million or some crazy shit like that. Neil Druckmann straight up said it's the most expensive game they've ever made. And I'm like, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure. It's high stakes, high risk, high reward type situation. I would say Yotei is like low risk, high reward potentially, you know, somewhat high reward, right? Um, Intergalactic's going to be fascinating, man. You'd add up 20 million for marketing. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 60 million for the entire development of the game and marketing sounds impossible, you know, that because marketing can be very expensive. In fact, I think like Spider-Man 2 went over budget because of marketing or something like that. The wolf saved you many times. Yeah, same. Um, but yeah, it's good to get official numbers. You know, again, I feel like this was something that was kind of in the air, and I wanted, you know, a lot of people were making a lot of assumptions, and they had to make these assumptions. This is also why, by the way, I didn't want to hold on. I'm trying to figure out if Alinea Analytics, because a lot of people were talking about Alinea and the number that they gave out, which was like 2.6 million sales in 3 weeks or something like that. I'm trying to figure out how accurate they were or were not. So October 22nd, Alinea Analytics. I mean, it was saying that Ghost of Yotei already beat Assassin's Creed Shadows on PS5. Okay, so I'm looking at says after 7 months on the market, Assassin's Creed Shadows has sold less on PS5, 2.4 million than Ghost of Yotei did. So Ghost of Yotei sold 2.5 million in under 3 weeks, and it says Alinea estimates. So I don't know. I mean, I guess that could be accurate. 3 weeks, 2.5 million. 1 month shoots up to 3.3 million. I think this might be a little bit that 2.5 million might be a little bit soft because I don't know that it would jump up that much. That's almost a million more, you know? That's almost a million more sold in the 4th week. So I think that 2.5 million is probably closer to like 2.8 if I had to guess. But I just wanted to reference that only because a lot of people, like I said, a lot of people were taking that number from Alinea and they were running with it and they were using that as like proof that, see, it's not doing well. And it's like, well, I'm going to, you know, I want to wait for Sony's earnings and see if they give us official numbers. And they did. And I'm glad I waited because I think it's looking better than what some people expected. All right, there's a few other things to go over here, though, that we have to talk about with Sony's earnings. When it comes to Sony as a whole, I'll just run down this real quick. So for Sony as a whole, their Q2 fiscal year report, games and network services made 1.11 trillion yen in revenue. I don't know what, I don't know what that is in US dollars. Hold on. Okay, hold on. I'm trying to organize this. I don't think we missed any. There's nothing really substantial here to go over on the Sony side of things. Oh, by the way, Sony, their senior manager and product manager, they confirmed that the Portal. Well, here's a quote. They said, before we launched the PlayStation Portal, some questions whether there would be demand for it, as it is such a unique product, being a dedicated remote play device to start off with. However, we've seen the community's response has been overwhelming. Our data shows that PlayStation Portal users are more engaged than non-users. PlayStation Portal has now become the most widely used device for PS5 remote play, surpassing mobile, PC, PS5, and PS4. PlayStation Portal continues to be a complementary device to the console and not a standalone yet. The average gameplay session on PlayStation Portal is around 2 hours. So just a little bit of a PS Portal update since we've been talking a lot about that. So when it comes to how the PlayStation 4, where the PlayStation 4 was time aligned, the PlayStation 4 was at 86.2 million units sold at the same time that the PS5 is at 84.2. So the PS2 is tracking about 2 million behind. And it'll be interesting to see if they can close that gap or begin to surpass it. It's kind of shocking, I have to admit. It's kind of shocking to think that the PS5 is still pacing this well with the PS4, because keep in mind, by this point in time, the PS4 was being sold for $300. So the PS5 freaking went up in price. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, I would have thought that certainly it not going down in price, but definitely the price going up would lead to a much wider gap beginning to show itself. And maybe that will happen, but as of right now, it's not. You know, this is and to take this even further, guys, Sony did say, Sony's CFO, Lin Tao, she said to shareholders that they're expecting to sell 90 million PlayStation 5 units by the end of this fiscal year. The end of this fiscal year is March 2026. So by March of next year, they're expecting to hit 90 million. So that would mean that by the end of 2026, certainly they're going to be anticipating. Dude, you're going to see GTA 6 possibly launch on a console that has 100 million units. That bodes very, very, very well for GTA 6 and for Rockstar. That bodes very well. So I think next year they'll hit that 100 million. Let's see what else. So Sony had a strong Q2. This is being reported by Zubitech. Profits and revenue in certain segments have hit record highs. The PlayStation business is doing extremely well. Now, look, I'm not really interested in celebrating this. I'm not trying to make it seem celebratory. Sony's money is not my money. But it is worth noting that, you know, when we are evaluating the health of the brand, you know, it sucks that we're seeing price increases when they're hitting record highs, but we see what can happen if it goes the other direction. So it says forecast for operating income, 18% increase forecast for 2-year operating income margin, fiscal year 2024 to 25, 11.3%. So we know that one of the reasons why Hiroki Totoki was brought in to take over was because Sony needed to increase their profit margins. That was something they really wanted to focus on. It seems like they're successfully doing that. You get the feeling that sales of PS5 will start to soften a bit going into next year as people start to think about saving their money for a PS6. Yeah, I think it really depends on I think, two things. How talked about the PlayStation 6 is next year, on top of how aggressive Sony becomes with trying to put the PS5 on sale. I think those two things will be a great determining factor in whether people hesitate or say, okay, we'll go for it. Here's something really interesting. Excuse me. So Sony CFO Lin Tao on Bungie, quote, regarding Destiny 2, partially due to the change in the competitive environment, the level of sales and the user engagement have not reached to the expectation we had at the time of the acquisition of Bungie. While we will continue to make improvements, we downwardly revised the business projection for the time being and recorded an impairment loss against a portion of the assets at Bungie. End quote. So, yeah, man, that's not good. Like, that's it's only getting worse with Bungie. For real. Like, Destiny 2 is now dying. And this is the opposite of what Sony expected. Sony expected to have Destiny 2 as their safe bet live service cash cow. Instead, it's dying and they have to record them, you know, they're recording losses. fuck, man. Like, I mean, at what point? I guess maybe it would be after Marathon. If Marathon also fails, at what point does Sony just like we gotta wrap this up? This has done nothing but damage us. Bungie has done nothing but damage the PlayStation brand and their business, and that's Sony's fault. They shouldn't have never made that acquisition. But at what point is it like you gotta unwind this and untangle, decouple yourself from it? And we have Masochist Mode. A member for 12 months says, "Why does Rockstar prioritize console? I never understood this." I'm not exactly sure, Masochist Mode. I don't know. It could be that they see. I mean, if we just try to go with the most common sense oriented answer, it would be it sells best on console. The bulk of their sales come from console. That's my assumption. You know, I don't think there would be any other logical reason why they would prioritize console first. My guess is that throughout the years, well, yeah, people can't pirate it either. I don't know. I mean, I don't know how much of a problem that is for the Grand Theft Auto series or the Red Dead series, but there is that too. But yeah, I don't know. I would assume it's just they look at their data and it's like their history shows that the GTA games have sold best and Red Dead has sold best on consoles. That's if it's not that, then I have no idea what else it could be. Maybe they could just get it out quicker. I don't know. Not having to optimize for everything at once. Corey, the state of play is happening in 3 hours, I believe. So I'm probably not going to be streaming the entire 3 hours leading into it. I'm probably going to wrap this up like an hour or like maybe at the 3 hour mark or the 3.5 hour mark. And then I'll come back at like 4 o'clock with a second stream just for the state of play. So we still have some time. But yeah, I think that this is a kind of a benefit to, I'll come back at 4 p.m. Eastern. The state of play starts at 5 p.m. Eastern. I just want to take a little break in between so I don't burn myself out, you know. I've done that too many times in the past with these state of plays. You know, if I take just a little snack break, you know, rehydrate, mentally prepare myself. 12-hour stream with pre-workout drink every hour. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't want to. I don't want the energy levels to be too high. You know, just because we don't know what we're walking into. Yeah, I'm gonna keep both streams up. Maybe there is a benefit to no crossplay. Yeah, except the fact there's nobody playing. I got my coffee with me here. Chug the coffee now. I think that's good. That's enough coffee for the day. But yeah, man, generally speaking, what Sony's saying here about the Bungie acquisition, look, man, I know it sounds like I'm beating a dead horse, but it's just, you know, this is the worst possible outcome from Sony's acquisition. I want to read this one more time. Quote, "We downwardly revised the business projection for the time being and recorded an impairment loss against a portion of the assets at Bungie," end quote. Translation, like, we're losing money. We bought these guys to make money and we're just losing more money. So we have to let our shareholders know to prepare for that. God, man, that's such a black mark on PlayStation's history, in my opinion. Between the Bungie acquisition and Concord are like the two worst things, I think, where it's just like, this is bad. But, you know, on the other side of it, surprise, surprise, the thing that Sony's been doing well, they're continuing to do well with. Titus, you're heading out, man? Or no, Robert is heading out. All right, bro. Thanks for hanging out. Bungification strikes again. Indeed. Indeed. Hold on one sec. All right. Bungie is the reason we don't have The Last of Us live service. Remember how well Arc Raiders is doing. It's a third-person apocalyptic game. Thanks for reminding me, Titus. Thanks, bro. I really appreciate it. All right. We still have a few more things to go over. Okay, so here's another really interesting quote from Sony CFO Lin Tao. And I want to talk about this one a little bit more extensively just because I think it's leading to some confusion. Quote, our view is that compared to conventional console life cycles, looking at the PS4 life cycle, it seems to be getting longer and longer, especially the PS4, which was launched in 2013, and it's been over a decade since then. There are many active users enjoying the PS5 console, so from that perspective, we believe that the PS5 is only in the middle of the journey, and we are really planning to expand it even further. End quote. So this is a quote that's making the rounds, and it's essentially Sony saying like, hey, we're like halfway through with the PS5. And there's a misinterpretation of this, I believe. Some people are interpreting this as, so the PS5, you're saying it's only halfway through. This means the PS6 is coming like 2029, 2030. That is not what they're saying. I'll tell you what she's saying. What she's saying is that cross-gen is going to be a thing for the PS5 for at least another 5 to 6 years. That's what she's saying. This is not... She's not telegraphing when the PS6 is coming. Sony, I think, is almost seemingly prepared for the reality that PS6 sales might be slower. That's my guess. I think Sony is well aware that they're going to have a harder time moving people over from PS5 to PS6, and I think they're starting to become okay with this, where it's like, if we launch the PS5 in 2027, there's going to be many, many people that feel as though it's too soon to upgrade, and they're not going to. Doesn't mean they're never going to upgrade. It just means they're probably going to be a little bit late. I think people also need to understand that, like, Sony has these contracts locked in with AMD. Like, it's not that they couldn't delay it. They could, but it's risky. It creates problems. If they are in agreement with AMD where, you know, our next gen devices are launching in holiday 2027, then that's what they're going to hit. You know, again, unless something catastrophic happens, which shouldn't happen. And I just feel like this was important to highlight because I've seen, again, quite a few people, they're taking this as, oh, the PS6 is coming in 2029 then, or 2030. No, everything we've heard, everything that has leaked, still 2027 console. Cross-gen, again, I just need to remind people, the PS6 handheld is a real device that's coming out. The PS6 handheld will be less than the power of a PS5. It'll likely produce better results in some instances than the base PS5 for some games. But that's a device that, you know, developers are going to be supporting through the entire life cycle of the PS6. So the PS5 just being there, it's not necessarily going to be a problem. But yeah, I do think something else that's worth noting with this quote from Lin Tao is that this is not how Sony, and I want to, as far as I remember, this is not how Sony was talking about the PlayStation 4 going into the 5. I think that's important to understand. where I think this is a clear signal that they're approaching this differently. I think Sony was not entirely sure, and they didn't fully work out how they wanted to approach cross-gen with the PS4 and PS5. I think on one hand, they were afraid to do it because they thought, we've never done cross-gen before. We need, what if this negatively impacts PS5 sales? And then I think COVID and the pandemic, I think that forced Sony's hand into like, well, it doesn't matter what we think about cross-gen, we have to do it. And I think through that process, they learned by doing that, oh, actually everything's fine. Like we were like, even though we released a lot of these games on PS4 and they could be viewed as system sellers, people still upgraded to the PS5. The people who wanted PS5s bought PS5s. So in other words, Sony basically learned that they didn't have to strong arm people. It was people were gonna upgrade either way. The only thing that I think is going to be different this time is, again, I'm just not convinced that the demand for PS5 will be as high as, or PS6 will be as high as PS5. I think Sony, I'm not saying they're going to do this, but I think if Sony was really concerned about moving people over quickly to the PS6, I think exclusives would do it. I think this is the time where it's like, listen, man, people are going to be looking for a reason why they need to upgrade. And if you're not showing an exclusive game or multiple exclusive games, a lot of people are going to say my PS5 is just fine. Again, I could be wrong on that, but I'm just not sure what the big hook is going to be. I feel like with the PS5, the big hook was 60 FPS, SSD, game-changing, what seems to be like game-changing features, as well as game-changing performance enhancements. Going from 60 FPS to 120 is not game-changing. It's nice, and it's certainly an improvement. It's not game-changing. Going from an extremely fast SSD to a slightly faster SSD is not game-changing. I don't know what Sony could offer with the DualSense 2 that would be considered game-changing. This is why I'm saying, like, I'm not convinced Sony will do exclusives. I don't think they're going to do exclusives for the PS6. But if Sony wants to get people moving over from PS5 to PS6 quickly, I think that's what you need to do. Because that's kind of like your safeguard. Like, if we couldn't convince you on the technical side, if we couldn't convince you on the demo side, like, you're just not convinced that this is next gen. Well, guess what? If you want this game, it's good. And I know it sounds shitty because it sounds like, oh, it's anti-consumer. They're forcing us to upgrade. But I'm just saying from their perspective, like from the business, we want our console to do well-oriented perspective. That might be what they need to do. Excuse me. Sony will have to come out hard with crazy new games, though, that are path traced to hell. And those PS4s and PS5s suddenly don't feel so great. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to presume to know like what Sony Studios will do. Like, I don't know what Horizon 3 will look like on a PS6. I don't know what Naughty Dog can do on a PS6. I don't know. But if what we've been seeing is anything to go by, yeah, it's going to be tough, man. I feel like, again, I feel like GTA 6 is coming out at the end of this generation. I think GTA 6 is going to be a high watermark, where it's like, look at, like, this is the epitome of, like, this is the epitome of the last 30 years of game development, and every generation culminating to this. I don't know where you go from there. Because, like, that's the thing. If you imagine, okay, well, what about the PS6 version of GTA 6? What could it do different? And it's like, it could look better and run better. But the game itself is what it is. Like, Red Dead Redemption 3, 2032, PS6 exclusive. Or not exclusive, but like, next gen only exclusive. Maybe then you're going to see, like, oh my God. Oh, okay. so we can go beyond GTA 6. I'm not, maybe Fizzant from Kojima. Kojima's always pushing shit, you know? I just, I don't know, like up front, I don't know what Sony does. And that's why I'm saying, like, on one side, they either do care and they want to have exclusives to move units as a safeguard, or on the other hand, it's like, actually, we anticipate PS6 sales will be softer up front because people are going to be comfortable on PS5. We'll focus more so on software sales, and, you know, over time, getting more and more people in bigger waves, you know, to upgrade. Because with Jim Ryan, if you guys remember with the PS5 launch, Jim Ryan's whole thing was, and he stated this numerous times, he said he wants to move people over from PS4 to PS5 as quickly as possible and as aggressively as possible. And he seemingly did that. I wonder if Sony might, you know, the new leadership at Sony, Hideaki Nishino and Herman Hulst, maybe they'll take a different approach where they're like, we're not so focused on doing it all at once, but doing it in waves and making it about timing. Where, like, maybe, you know, maybe the second year or the third year of PS6 could be just as big as the first year. Actually, that actually, let me walk that back. The second and third years of a console are usually peak years, so they will be big. But I'm saying, like, maybe by the fourth, fifth, and sixth year, we're actually going to see bigger waves of people coming in than we did for the PS4 or PS5. That's because we were okay with the idea of more people holding off. We weren't trying to force them. We're just going to kind of let it happen naturally. Maybe that's an approach they could take. And maybe they could afford to do that because of the handheld. But all I know is that based off of what Sony is saying here with this quote from Lin Tao, you know, they're definitely embracing PS5 for another 5 to 6 years. And they're going to be supporting it for a long time. So, and of course, you know, they should say that now. We've been talking about the PS6, but Sony has yet to really officially announce it. We have a report here from Insider Gaming also. Says it has been revealed that the release of Helldivers 2 on Xbox helped increase engagement as well as sales for PS5 and PC versions. Arrowhead Game Studios released Helldivers 2 for Xbox in August 2025, and that decision helped revitalize the game for a new platform of players. It was also revealed earlier this year that Helldivers 2 sold more on Xbox than PlayStation in its first 6 days, and now it seems that the Xbox port has also helped bolster sales on other platforms. Spotted by This Week in Video Games, Sony Group CFO Lin Tao spoke about Helldivers 2's Xbox port contributing towards PS5 and PC sales during a Q&A portion of the company's earnings call. Tao first talked about how their live service titles, quote, overall accounted for more than 40% of our first-party software revenue, end quote. Even though performance is different for each title, they observed that live service games are a, quote, recurring source of revenue, end quote, similar to the previous quarter. Lin Tao then spoke about Helldivers 2, stating that it was also released for Xbox in 2025 and is, quote, doing extremely well, end quote. The group CFO added that Xbox port has not only helped bring in new players on Xbox, but also increased engagement from existing users on PS5 and PC. The move has, quote, resulted in a significant increase in sales of the title year on year, end quote. And another quote is, building on this recent progress, we aim to strengthen our studio business and expand our IP franchises through continuous learning and improvement, end quote. So, I don't know. I don't know how much to read into this. Like, on one hand, Sony is flat out saying that this was good for Helldivers 2. On the other hand, they don't explicitly state that they're going to continue doing this. And I find that strange because I've been paying enough attention. Yeah, Broccoli Rob, I'm going to stream the State of Play. I've been paying enough attention to Sony's earnings report over the years that Sony usually, I mean, this is kind of what they do, right? They keep you in the middle. Like, they're very particular and very careful about how they word things. So this is like one of these situations where this could go either way. Building on this recent progress, we aim to strengthen our studios business and expand our IP franchises through continuous learning and improvement. So to me, that is the closest thing we're getting to Sony flat out saying like we're going to continue to do this. They're not saying they're not going to continue to do it, but they don't really go into detail. That's kind of thing. Like she's being vague about it, but generally speaking, they're going to continue to do this. Now, does that mean more and more games going to Xbox? I don't know. They're only talking about live service here. I wouldn't get ahead of myself and assume that this means, Spider-Man's still coming to Xbox. I am not reading this that way. But, they're flat out saying that they saw a significant increase in sales year on year. So, I don't know. They saw the results and they're not saying they're not doing it anymore. So we'll just have to, I guess, keep an eye out, see what they announce next. All right. Where are we at here? It's also worth noting that during their earnings, Sony highlighted single-player AAA titles like Death Stranding 2 and Ghost of Yotei as a key part of its business. So, not surprising, but reassuring for those wondering, like, how important are these games to Sony? Still very, very important. Like, still the most important. So, no worries there. Now I'm just double checking to make sure there isn't anything I missed. I think that about covers it. Oh, there's one other thing I did miss. Yeah, and I reported on this on my Twitter. Sony CFO Lin Tao also reaffirmed that Wolverine is their tentpole title for 2026. And they did confirm that it's their only major tentpole for next year. So they're pretty much putting all their eggs in the Wolverine basket for next year, which is fine. I think that makes sense. But there's two things to extract from this. Number one, Intergalactic's not happening next year. Number two, no delay for Wolverine. Sony is dead serious about getting this game out in 2026. They need it. Like they don't really have a choice. I'm not saying that means they'll force it out, but they will do what they have to do to get it ready and get it locked in and, be very aware of where GTA is launching in proximity to it. Titus, you're saying they won't need to port to Xbox, just the PC, and the new Xbox is a PC anyway, so it will play. That's true too. The big question, Titus, when it comes to the next Xbox is how many Xbox versions of games can we really expect? If developers know that, well, we're releasing it on Steam and we have a PC version, every person on the next Xbox is going to have access to that. But the thing is, I think you're going to see Xbox versions for quite some time, because we do have to understand that even though sales of the Series X and S are like non-existent at this point, it's still going to be like a 25 to 30 million install base, give or take. I think it's going to be like 28 million. There's like a 28 million install base that devs might still want to target for a couple years. So it's like if you're making a PS5 version of a game, maybe you do just make that. I don't know. We're still seeing developers make Xbox versions of games. I don't know if that'll cease, but GTA is still coming out on Xbox. I'll give you like an example, right? When we tune into the Game Awards next month, you're going to see a lot of games announced. Games that are coming in 2026, games that are coming in 2027 and beyond. You're going to see a lot of games announced. And I'm talking like big AAA games from big publishers. How many of those games do you think are not going to have Xbox versions? I'm being if I'm being honest, I don't think there's going to be many. I don't think you're just going to suddenly see like, dude, more than half the games, there's no Xbox version. So, and I think the reason for that is it's a business decision. I think it's like, yeah, sure, maybe Xbox won't go beyond 28 million. And, maybe there's not a future for Xbox in the hardware space in a significant way. But for now, we're still, there's still probably millions of people playing on their Series X and Series S. Those are potential buyers. So we'll support it. I think you'll see Xbox versions for, quite some time. And if we see a transition where it's like developers are now not making Xbox versions, they're just doing PC versions alongside PS5 and Switch, that'll come, I would say, closer to the midway point of the PS6 generation. So, like, for example, on Magnus, when that Xbox comes out, like, there will be an Xbox storefront, like, obviously. And I think for the first couple years, you'll see, like, most games launch on the Xbox store. I could see at the halfway point, once, like, people truly have moved on from the Series X and S, once that cross-gen cutoff begins, if it does, I think that's when you'll start to see devs be like, yeah, we're just doing the PC version. And, if you're somebody who's playing on Xbox Magnus, you're not, like, you're kind of screwed in the sense that you can't unlock Xbox achievements now. And you're not going to get an Xbox version, but you still have access to the game through Steam. So, from that perspective, it's like you're not missing the game itself. You're just not getting that specific version of it. You guys get what I'm saying? You think Switch 2 is going to have that problem too, MBG? People aren't buying non-Nintendo games on the Switch 2. Yeah, I think I greatly overestimated what Switch 2 was going to do from a third-party perspective. Like, if you guys remember leading into the Switch 2's announcement, I really believed, I'm like, dude, Sony's got to worry about this thing. Like, I think every third-party dev, I think it's going to get incredible third-party support. And to be fair, it's getting strong third-party support, but I think it feels kind of obvious right now. And it could change over time. The PlayStation handheld is going to, I'm telling you, that's going to shake things up, I think, in terms of our conversation and all of this. Because if you think about it, like, if you're going to, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but we have to see how much more powerful and capable the PlayStation 6 handheld is compared to the Switch 2. Because there could be this kind of situation where the PS6 handheld, maybe even $600 for shits and giggles. It's just above that threshold where this can get pretty much every game. Now, some games are going to run like ass. Some games are not going to look great or be ideal. But it's just above that threshold where, like, it's pretty much going to get every game. I feel like the Switch 2 is below that threshold. I think the fact that the Switch 2, like, that threshold I'm referring to, by the way, is the PS5. I think the PS5 is that threshold where it's like, I mean, think about what we just said. Like, why is GTA 6 only being developed for console? Well, I mean, we talked about sales, but like that's the thing, man. Like the PS5 is kind of the standard in the console space. It is the standard. It is the third party standard in the console space. And the PS6 is going to move things forward, but the PS handheld is also going to keep it held back. Well, actually, it's not so much that it's going to keep it held back. It's just that Sony, I think, is embracing the idea that the PS5 level power, to be clear, not literally the console itself, PS5 level power, I think, is the standard. Because the PS5 is just above the Switch 2, but it's also just at that threshold, as proven with the PS5 Pro, essentially, that, well, the most significant performance gains going forward are not going to come from raw hardware. They're going to come from software solutions and AI and machine learning. So this is why I think, like, the situation, I think I vastly overestimated the situation with the Switch 2 in terms of competition for Sony. The Switch 2 is clearly doing great. Like Nintendo's doing very good. I'm not trying to make it sound like they're failing or they're struggling. It's not that. It's just, you know, it's the fact that, like you're saying, like people, like we know why people are buying Switch 2s. And I'm not saying there isn't a certain novelty for people where it's like, I could play Elden Ring soon, next year on my Switch 2, or I could play Cyberpunk on my Switch 2. But it's just the games we're seeing are older games. Most new games that are getting announced are not getting announced for Switch 2. Call of Duty's still not on Switch 2. And that was an agreement that they signed with Microsoft years ago. I think we know what the Switch 2 strength is. It's the same that it was for the Switch 1. And I don't think that's I think it makes it so that Sony maintains their dominant position in the console space as the de facto third party machine. With their own first party, of course, but like where are you going to go play GTA 6? You're going to go PS5. Where are you going to go? Where are you playing Call of Duty? You're playing on PS5. And I'm saying this because I had this idea in my head that I was like, what if that changes? What if by the time the Switch 2 is out, people are like, actually, I'm gonna go play on Switch. I'm gonna play Call of Duty on my Switch. I'm gonna go play GTA on my Switch. I'm gonna go play so and so on my Switch. And I do think people will buy these games on Switch, and they are. But I don't. Who is maining their Switch for these games? Well, not the games I just mentioned because they're not available, but for the third-party games that are available on it, who is maining their Switch 2 for it? Probably not many people. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying, like, this is what I'm observing. Arfin, let me see what you sent me here. Sony CFO Lin Tao on the PlayStation 6, quote, future launchers, let me try this again, quote, future launches and successors, we are not in a position to make any comments about that. That is all we have, end quote. Holy shit. Yo. I mean, Jesus, man. They said literally nothing. They didn't give you anything, bro. They didn't even give you a fucking morsel. They're like, we ain't saying nothing. Next what? Next launch. Successor? What? What are you talking about? In the beninging. In the beninging, there's PS5. Then PS5 Pro. We sell you PS5 and PS5 Pro. But yeah, man, it's interesting. You think kids will be maining? I mean, I could see kids maining the Switch 2, or like younger audience maining the Switch 2. Because like if you're not that, I don't know. I just feel like most people who are interested in having a main driver console, like if they're not on PC, I think that's where the PS5 shines. Where it's like this is where you go to play Sony games that they put out that you're interested in, but this is probably where you're playing your third-party games too. And, we see that with the Switch 2, that the Switch 2's greatest strength is people buy that. They buy it for exclusives, and there's almost like a level of there's like a novelty factor with being able to play Cyberpunk on Switch. I feel like people who are playing Cyberpunk on Switch and like Final Fantasy, it's like, I'm a little bit surprised. I am. Like, I really thought that when the Switch 2 came out, it was going to be like every third-party game that's announced, there's going to be a Switch 2 version. And that's not at all what's happening. And I'm genuinely surprised by that. Like, genuinely. I really thought that that's what Sony had to worry about. And I'm sure Sony was prepared for it just in case, but I thought it was going to be like a problem where it's like every single new game that's announced, Switch 2 version's right there. And it's going to start to convince more and more and more people to be like, maybe I will just main the Switch. But I think, I think by this point in time, it's somewhat safe to say that that's not what's happening. Like Sony and Nintendo in this regard are actually in two very different lanes. And I think Sony's going to try to swerve over a little bit into Nintendo's lane with this upcoming handheld. Which is I find that so fascinating where it's like, bro, like Nintendo's not really interfering with Sony, but Sony's like, Nintendo, you're next. I'm just kidding. It's not, and they're not gonna be able to do anything to Nintendo, but I just mean like, it's just interesting to me that Sony looks at that pie and they're like, maybe we should try to get a slice of it, you know? Maybe it's our turn to get a slice of that handheld pie now. But I'm sure, but that's the thing. Sony can't be too arrogant about it because look at what they did with the Vita. Like, bro, you were on top of the world with the PSP, 80 million units sold. Vita brought you back down, 16 million. Not saying that's bad. Like today, I mean, dude, if you sell a handheld today at $500 or $600, 16 million units, that's fucking good. But Sony, Sony's looking at those Switch sales numbers. And they're like, we need that. We want that. They're looking at it. They see it. They know. And, I do think Sony, maybe this makes them sound a little bit pompous, but they are a little bit. They've always kind of had that air about them. I think Sony, they look at the Switch and especially the Switch 2 and the sales success, and I think they're like, well, if they can do it, so can we. And to be fair, there's no reason for Sony not to think that. I mean, Sony they have proven, at least in the home console space, like, yeah, you can fucking do it. You're damn right you can. You do it right, you got this. But I think Sony, I think that they see the number, like the sheer numbers that Nintendo continues to do in the handheld space. And they think, man, like, why can't we do that? Why can't we at least try, And I think that's good because it goes to show that, like, Sony still has a bit of hunger, like they're not, if Sony was completely resting on their laurels, this upcoming handheld wouldn't even be a thought. It would just be like, whatever, bro. Like, we don't need that. We got the PS6, we're good to go. If anything, the PS6 handheld is a huge risk. I'm gonna be honest. Like, it's a huge risk for them, and it's one that I'm not saying I know for sure will pay off. I don't know, but it's gonna make the conversation a lot less boring, I guess you could say, because if it was just a PS6, the conversation would still be pretty lit, but there'd be that level of like, people, like a lot of people would be like, I'm not, whatever. I've been down this road. It's, it's tried and true, whatever. I think this handheld is a bit of like a, it's a bit of a spark where people are like, huh, Sony re-entering the handheld space. What's that going to look like? No corporation gives a shit. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing, Irvin. Like, I don't want to make it, I don't think Sony, to be clear, I don't think Sony's banking on the handheld. That would be stupid. Like, that would be just straight up foolish. Sony's banking on the PlayStation 6. To be clear, they're banking on the PlayStation 6 home console. But I think they're just they're giving themselves better odds, Where it's like, what if you, rather than put every single egg you have into the PS6 home console basket, why don't you split them 75-25? 75% of your eggs, PS6 console basket. Because why not? Look at how you've done over the generations with your console. Remaining 25%, put that in the handheld basket because there's work to be done there. There's potential growth there, Arguably, there could potentially be more growth there than in the home console space at this moment in time. So, yeah, I think it's a wise and very interesting decision on Sony's part, and I actually think it's even more significant in a sense because it's clear that, you know what? Hold on. Let me flip this around for a second. What if? It's a big what if. But what if Sony, because we have to keep in mind, this PlayStation 6 handheld device was greenlit multiple years ago. This was decided on years ago. This isn't like they just decided yesterday or last year. This was like years in the making. What if Sony had the same thought process that I did? And they were like, listen, the Switch 2 is coming. We're looking at the sales of the Switch 1. The Switch 2 is going to be much more capable. What if Sony made this handheld as I don't want to say out of fear, but they were ultimately worried that, like, dude, if the Switch 2 comes out and gets all the third-party support that we're getting, but also has the strength of their exclusives, we're going to need something. MBG, the list of developers and publishers for today's State of Play has been leaked. Want the link? Yes, please, Irfan. Thank you. I'm curious. All right, let's take a look. Okay, so the list wow. No Capcom? What? What? Capcom, what the fuck? What's going on? Why is Sony and Capcom like... Anyway, here's the leak list of publishers that will be at today's State of Play. Koei Tecmo, Arc System Works, From Software, Pocket Pair, Square Enix, Serafini Studios, Team Ninja, Spike Chunsoft, 91 Act, Bandai Namco. I was just thinking like Dark Souls 3 Remaster. Also a Dragon Ball as the background image. Whatever that means. I don't know what the fuck that means. How are we not, bro, how are we not getting Capcom? All right, well, at least we now know no Resident Evil 9, no Onimusha, no Pragmata. So we can scratch that off the list. No Kojima Productions either. No Team Asobi, excuse me. Wow, so all right, so if we look at this list, we could start to figure out games. Koei Tecmo, what do we think Koei Tecmo is bringing? It says partial list. Oh shit, hold on, wait. Oh, you're right. Fuck, I missed that. Good catch. I completely overlooked that. Okay, so I don't think this is everybody. This is a partial list. Actually, MRPD, I would say this one is believable because the same person leaked half the publishers that were going to be at the other State of Play, and they were all right. So this person, I think this person probably knows everything, but is like, I'm not going to spoil it all. Just give you some of the. It's a reset era person, so they were correct before. Demon Souls 2? Oh shit. All right, hold on. Oh, okay. I see what they mean now when they say the picture of the Dragon Ball in the background. List of studios / publishers. It's not complete to be at today's State of Play. So it's not complete. So it's not everything, but huh. FF13 Shadow Drop? Can someone confirm if that leak was real in the chat? Just want to leave a little bit of surprise before the show for myself. Which leak are you talking about, Ray? Well, I can tell you that this leak of the publishers, this is legitimate because the same person made an image, the same image for the last State of Play with half the, I'll bring it up right now. Incomplete list of studios and publishers for September State of Play. Ilphonic, Gung Ho, Bandai/Shift, Pearl Abyss, Xbox Game Studios, EA, ZA/UM. And they were 100% complete, like correct. Every single studio that was listed here was at that State of Play. But that was only half the studios. So it seems like this is the same situation where they're giving us half the studios, half of them we're not going to know. But if it makes you feel any better, right? Like we didn't, none of the games, like they didn't leak any of the games. So to be honest, you probably could have guessed half of these publishers and you would have been right. Okay, so I'm okay with this leak. It's not so. Ooh, sorry. The big one here is From Software, bro. The big one here is From Software. When you find out From Software is in fact going to be at today's State of Play, but still don't know if it's Bloodborne related.
It's enough to get me to the boiling point.
You know, shit just got real. That absolutely was, Wes. That absolutely was. God damn, dude. Hold on.
Hulk Hogan, yeah.
Just replace Hulk Hogan with Bloodborne. I'm telling you, like, people seeing From Software on this list, that's what's happening, man. Demon Blood or Blood Souls. Or if it's like, what was that?
You say you don't know where the Macho Man is coming from?
Bro, I could make this half the stream. Demonborn? I mean, it's probably going to be Night Rain, dude. Check the Reddit leaks before it gets deleted. Oh, shit. Hold on. There ain't no... Dude, this has to be a troll post, right? There's no way somebody posted Grums as a fucking source, dude. Come on. Get that shit out of here. Says, Grums, Ghost of Yotei is a failure in Sony's vision, selling less than Ghost of Tsushima. It was such a failure that they bragged about it at their earnings report. Dude, like, you can't make this shit up, man. Come on. You can't, like, this is not me running defense, but it's just, you can't make this up. Like, dude, listen, I understand. God, it just gets me to a point.
You're right. You don't know anything about the Macho Man, Randy said.
I mean, dude, it gets me to that point. It gets me to that point, dude. Like, we're gaslighting the shareholders, bro. Listen, we have two choices here. Okay? We have two choices. We can either believe what Sony just told their shareholders, which was it sold 3.3 million in a month and they consider it a success. We can believe that, or we can believe a person who has done nothing but talk down upon this game and telegraph its failure in the name of more than likely financial gain. The choice is yours. You know, I'm not going to tell people what to believe. Believe what you want, but I think that, look, man, I think people need to learn to separate your personal feelings about a studio and their game from the reality of like just raw data. That's all. I just think if you can separate those two things, the conversation becomes much less distorted, because it's just like, dude, I fucking hate this game and it sold. That's okay. Like, it's okay. It happens. Like, things I don't like do well. Things I do like do well. Things I like fail. It's okay. I just don't appreciate people who try to distort that in the name of painting a very specific curated picture that's not true to reality. Wow, that was record time, Irfan. And like, that's the thing. If we want to have like a mature, realistic conversation, to me it looks something like this. Did Sony have higher expectations? It's certainly possible. Yes, it is possible that they had higher expectations. However, there is a bit of evidence that I would point to that would indicate that it's maybe not that simple, right? The evidence, and again, this comes from data, right? I'm not pointing to anything other than the factual data. Horizon Zero Dawn sold incredibly. It basically sold, I think, a similar amount to Ghost of Tsushima. It was a massive success. Sony loved it. Like, holy shit, this is incredible. Horizon Forbidden West sold softer. It didn't do the same exact. It did well. Like, I think what it did, like, so in the time that Horizon Zero Dawn did 10 million, I think Horizon Forbidden West did like 8.3 or 8.4 million. So it's less, not by a massive amount, but definitely, something you could see the difference there. And Sony has not. I mean, do we think Sony views that as a failure? No, like, it's very clear that Sony still views Horizon as one of their most successful franchises by far. And I think when you look at that, again, that is data that you cannot argue. And we see how much Sony still cares deeply about Horizon. I don't believe that they would just have a completely different approach and feeling towards Yotei, where it's like, Tsushima did 10 million. Tsushima did 5 million in 4 months, and Yotei only did 3.3 in 1 month. Failure. Like, no, dude. Like, it just. I mean, how much really needs to be said about it, I think that. I think Yotei has had a lot of controversy surrounding it, and I get it, but I still think that there's a lot of people who kind of, I think they comment on PlayStation related things, and I don't think they fully understand like how Sony operates, where it's like, dude, Sony, what's going on with my beard here? Like, this white hair really sticking out. Like, Sony, if a studio like Sucker Punch puts out a game on a budget of, let's just say, $80 to $90 million. Took 5 years to develop, $90 million development costs. We'll count marketing as well in that. And it's, it sells almost 3.5 million copies in a month on an install base of 84 million. It's going to make them good money, dude. Like real good money. It's going to make the studio good money. Across the board, that is an objective success. In terms of you, not only did you break even, but you made a pretty decent profit, I would say. And from that point forward, it's just going to be more profit. I think that it's one of these situations where some people don't seem to realize that, like, Sony's not going to turn to that studio and be like, guys, you're going to have to figure your shit out because this is a problem. No, Sony's going to turn to that studio and said, you did your job. Good work. Keep striving for more, obviously. But good work. Like, they're not going to, like, this is where I think the people that are out here having trying to have these discussions, like, they just don't seem to understand how these things work. And I think that they will just make things up. Like I've literally seen this with some of these people. I've watched some of their videos and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you are literally making shit up and presenting it as objective fact. And they always do it in this way where they make it seem like I know something you don't. I'm connected. And it's like, no, you're fucking not. Like, you're not connected to anything. Like, you're on the internet just like everybody else, just trying to make money, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But like to try to create these fantasies, knowing that so many people will just eat it up and buy into it. I'm not sure what's worse, the person, weaving these webs or the people that are just falling right into it so willingly. It's like, dude, Sony is very likely, legitimately happy that Ghost of, I don't think people understand, like, Ghost of Yotei was a flight risk for a little bit there. Where, like, it's like, if you're Sony, you're like, yo, what's up with the drama going on with this game? Are we in trouble? And then to come out on the other end, like, no, dude, it's doing, like, it's pacing about the same as Tsushima. It's like, oh shit, okay. Like, that's good. That's good. Like, I think people also fail to look at Sony's history, where it's like Sony has had true failures. Like, do I really need to bring up Concord again? Looking beyond Concord, I'm not going to bring up Concord. Concord's too easy of a target. But, like, in the past, Sony has had games that failed. The Order 1886. You guys remember that? Like, that's when you need to worry. When it's like, holy shit, dude, this game's coming out. Or I don't think Days Gone was a failure, but, like, even something like that, it's like, it goes to show that negative review scores and people kind of piling on, yeah, like, stuff like that, I think, does impact not even just Sony, but the studio itself. The studio was unsure at that point, if what they even made was worth making a sequel to. I feel like if you look at Ghost of Yotei across the board, it's not experiencing any of those things, not a singular aspect of it. That's what blows my mind about these about the way some of these people are framing this, where it's like, what are we doing? It reviewed well. It sold well. It's probably going to win some awards. Like, I'm not asking what the problem is on a personal level. I'm not asking an individual to tell me what their problem with this game is. I'm asking, if you're going to come out here and paint this game as a failure, to explain your reasoning, to back your reasoning up. Not with a, trust me, bro, Sony's disappointed in it. Like, I'm sorry, do you have Hiroki Totoki on speed dial? I'll tell you, one of the biggest things I learned about Sony and how they operate. Now I got to say it on my Macho Man voice. One of the biggest things I learned about Sony and how they operate, and this is, again, this is through years of focusing on them and paying attention to them and trying to understand how these things work between their studios and the business side. I remember when I thought, and this is where you get caught up in the hearsay, I thought that Herman Holst was responsible for rejecting a Days Gone 2. And I believed this for the longest time until I found out that actually, and we learned this from the studio heads that left the studio. It turns out that no, there was internal strife with the high-ranking people at Ben's studio where the pitch never even happened because they couldn't even get the studio collectively to agree to do a Days Gone 2. So there was never a Days Gone 2 pitch, as far as I'm aware. Like the studio head said that they had everything ready to go of like what they wanted to do. And I'm certain that like if Ben's studio got their shit together and agreed that we want to make a Days Gone 2, I think Sony would have absolutely greenlit it. I think Sony would have given him another chance because it sold extremely well. If anything, Sony's probably like, what the fuck is going on with these guys? Like if anything, Sony's like, why guys, what are you doing? Why don't you want to make a Days Gone 2? But it proves that Sony did not kick the door down and say you're making a Days Gone 2. It also proves that these studios, their fate is usually in their own hands. And that to me is just so important to try to understand and wrap your head around when we're having these conversations, because it's not to say that Sony isn't like, you want to talk about what what Sony's fucking disappointed in right now? Sony's disappointed in Bungie. Sony's disappointed that they spent almost $4 billion on this company, that their live service game is now dying, and they have to do they have to report to shareholders that they're going to lose a shit ton of money very soon. That's what Sony is upset about. And that's also, if anything, that highlights even more why Sony is very much pushing that like Ghost of Yotei is doing well. Listen, we got a dumpster fire over here with Bungie. It ain't good. But on the bright side, look, we got Ghost of Yotei doing very well. And Death Stranding, I don't know, they didn't talk too much about Death Stranding, but I think that did okay. So, I don't mean to go on such a rant, but I know, I just, it can become, I rarely acknowledge this stuff anymore, and I don't talk about it much anymore. But it is, sometimes it is frustrating to come across where it's like, listen, there are two types of people in this space at this point in time. There are people who want to actually have decent, somewhat meaningful discussions about games and the gaming industry and the happenings within it. And there are people who want to exploit those who think they care about it, or who do, but just don't realize what they're falling for, and do so in the name of just, again, rage baiting, doom baiting, all the different baitings, and profiting off of it. I just find it highly disturbing that there are people out here that aren't even hiding it anymore. You used to have to hide it. You used to have to be more subtle about it. Used to have to be more clever. These days it's just we're just gonna put it all out there and see if people are actually gonna eat it up. And I'm not sure who to blame at this point. Like, do I blame the people who are doing it? Or do I blame the people do I blame society? I just hope that people start to like wise up a little bit. It's like, guys, and no, dude, it's not the prospect of Yotei flopping. Dude, Yotei could flop and I wouldn't care. I said, dude, I just talked earlier in the stream about how I'm struggling to platinum this game. I think it's a well-made game, and I think it's a good game, but I'm ready for them to do something new. Like, they need to. I really believe that. I don't think that they can do the Ghost formula again without it getting, like, I think by the time, like, if we get Ghost 3, if they don't change something dramatically, I think it's like, guys, in my opinion anyway, like, I think we gotta move on. But I just I'm just trying to call a spade here, you know? If Sony came out and said Ghost of Yotei sold 2 million copies, I would literally say, yeah, that is objectively, demonstrably worse than Ghost of Tsushima, and then I would believe. If that was true, then I would say Sony could be disappointed. Yeah, like they may be looking at that and being like, I sure hope Sucker Punch does something different next time, because we had this conversation with The Last of Us Part 2. I remember we learned about sales for The Last of Us Part 2, and it seemed pretty clear that The Last of Us Part 2 did not sell as well as the first game. And you couple that with the intense controversy around it, and it does lead somebody to wonder, like how's Sony feeling about this? But then Sony was like, go ahead, make Intergalactic your most expensive game ever. And that's where I'm saying, like, dude, Sony's not looking at the headlines, man. Sony's not looking at the rage bait YouTube channels. Sony's looking at the numbers. And The Last of Us 2 made the money. Like, that's the thing. It may have sold less than The Last of Us Part 1, but it made the money. And Sony gives their studios the benefit of the doubt, where they're like, listen, if you make 3 games, a trilogy, and by the 3rd game it's selling like less than half of the first one, we're gonna assume you're smart enough to run your studio correctly to move on to something new, rather than run it into the ground with a 4th game that nobody asked for. Sony clearly runs their studios that way, because if Sony has to go up to a studio and say you're not making a 4th entry, because you're gonna kill your studio. Like, if Sony has to save a studio from themselves, they will, but they shouldn't have. If they have to do that, then something's wrong with that studio, like, inherently. So, and I'm not saying that's the situation that The Last of Us is in. I'm just saying, if eventually we get The Last of Us Part 3, and just hypothetically, if The Last of Us Part 3 sells half of what The Last of Us Part 2 did, Naughty Dog's going to know, like, okay, we got to move on. Like, that's not good. Like, we can't force this now. It would be a mistake to do so. Max Gaming LV says, thanks to whoever gifted me a membership. All right, so guys, we're probably going to wrap this up very soon. Because I'm gonna take a little break, and I'm gonna come back at around 4:00 Eastern time. So I'm gonna stream for about another like 10 minutes or so. I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm gonna set up my State of Play stream, and I'll be back at 4:00, and we'll prepare for that and talk about it. But we'll do like a last call for this stream. If you want to drop any more support for this stream, if you want to contribute to the member goal anymore, or drop any more super chats or direct donos, now would be the time. Gonna do a little bit more Fox Hunt MRPD. Nice, dude. Yeah, I mean, I guess I shouldn't apologize for ranting so much, but it's just, I'm trying not to, I don't want to come off as defensive, because, dude, I'll be honest, man, like, Ghost of Yotei is a good game, but if you want to know how I feel about Yotei versus Tsushima, I like Tsushima, like, story-wise, way more. And I was thinking about this, dude, and I'm like, I think Tsushima's story, like, is substantially better. And I'm like, I like, there's people get weird in their feelings about stuff like this, because it's like, if you say you liked Yotei's story better, it's like, well, then you're a Jin hater, bro. You hate Tsushima, don't you? It's like, no. But then if you say it the other way around, it's like, well, you just don't like Yotei. It's because she's a girl or female, isn't she? She's like, no, dude. Like, I was really thinking about this, and I'm like, dude, the dynamic between Jin, his uncle, and the leader of the Mongol army. That dynamic is substantial, especially with his uncle, substantially like more interesting in my opinion and more engaging than Yotei. Khotan Khan. Yeah. With Yotei's story, like listen, I'm gonna avoid spoilers as best I can. I'm not gonna spoil anything. Here you go, Arfin. Here's your little spoiler cast. It's not really spoilers, but you know, at some point in Ghost of Yotei's story, it's like I get it. Like your life is over after you hunt down the Yotei 6. And everybody around you is like, don't do it. You're doing this isn't the path to walk. And I'm like, I appreciate it, but it's like at some point, it's like you're telegraphing like the tension that they're building. I appreciate it. Because it's not, again, you can build tension on basic concepts and basic story plot beats, and they did that with Yotei. But the further it went on, the more I'm like, this is okay, like this is completely predictable. You could make the same argument for Tsushima, but the argument I would make in the other direction is that in Tsushima, the tension that was built between Jin and his uncle is way more palpable. I mean, to me, it's way more uncomfortable because, you have so many flashbacks of Jin where his uncle is basically his father. In Yotei, this is just a guy that wants to build an army and rule. And I guess what I'm trying to say is, it feels like they took what felt like two distinct characters in Tsushima that felt separate from one another. You know, where you have Khotan Khan and Jin's uncle. I keep forgetting his name. What's the name of his uncle? I don't know why it's eluding me. And then Lord Shimura, thank you. And then in Yotei, you just kind of have one guy. Now, I know there's 6, but really it's just one guy. Like, that's the only guy that really matters. The leader. And I understand that, like, with the Yotei 6, they each have different stories. And that was interesting. I would say the strongest part of Yotei was learning about the Yotei 6. But without spoiling anything, when you finally get to the final hoorah, you know, I was left very disappointed. I'm like, I was like, again, without spoiling anything, I'm like, that's it? Like, that's it? You know? To where I realized it was very much the journey is more impactful than the destination, for sure. With Tsushima, it was the journey and the destination, and that's what did it for me. Is in Tsushima, I'm like, bro, the tension building between him and his uncle is driving me nuts. And then also you got this Khotan Khan guy who's just, I mean, an absolute monster, savage. And Jin's in this really, really, he's in between, it's the definition of being in between a rock and a hard place. And I just felt like that dynamic had much more of a grip on me than the dynamic of Atsu is traumatized, which is still a good dynamic to learn about her trauma and what drives her, but just the entire game being like, you sure about this? You sure this is the right thing? I mean, they're people too, you know, and it's like, I'll be honest, man. Like, I think Sucker Punch flew a little too close to the sun with this one, in the sense that you're flying a little too close to The Last of Us Part 2 sun. You know, where it's like this is so familiar to me, like super familiar. You know, where I'm like, oh, you know, and Irfan, do you remember when before I played Yotei, and I'm sorry, TP, you were saying lots of people will like the first game of anything. That's true too. That's true too. Do you remember how before we played Ghost of Yotei, I was saying, like, I wonder what kind of crazy, like, I get the feeling that there's going to be some kind of big twist, you know, in this story with if not Atsu. And there was a twist, by the way. There was a twist. But it was ultimately not a twist. I'm not spoiling it. If you beat Ghost of Yotei, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not a twist. It's like a twist and then an untwist. And I'm like, okay, interesting. Like, all right. So it's a twist in it. It's like a Telltale game. Like, you think you know. But anyway, yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything specifically, but I was waiting for the big twist, and that never came. And that, I think, is what left me, because I knew what was going to happen at the end, like halfway through the game. I had a very, very distinct feeling, but I was like, there could be, hold on. I'm like, I remember talking to my wife about it. I'm like, I know exactly how this game's going to end. And I'm a little bit disappointed that, like, I'm not even, I think I'm about halfway through, or, I was like two or three of the Yotei 6 down, and I'm like, I know where this is going. And I remember telling my wife, I'm like, man, I'm not gonna lie, like, it's kind of disappointing to know that this is where, like, this is how it's gonna be. But then I was like, you know what? Hold on though. Maybe I'm just assuming. Maybe that's what they want me to think. They want me to think I know what's gonna happen, and they're gonna have something crazy happen towards the end in the third act. That never came. There was no holy shit. Like it very, like, literally, I wish I could say it without spoiling, but literally exactly what I thought was going to happen to a fucking T happened. And I'm like, oh. And that's why I want to highlight something. One of the biggest reasons why Tsushima's ending was fucking unforgettable was because you have to make a choice. You, literally, you, the player, you have to make a choice. And that choice, like, the entire game builds up to that choice. And that, I mean, compared to this ending, I felt like the ending to be clear, the ending for Yotei is not bad. It's just, it felt boilerplate somewhat, like, the writing in this game, to be clear, is mostly good. There were in fact, some of my favorite moments in Yotei were the conversations between the characters and learning about the characters and the interactions. And I want to make it clear, like, that stuff is excellently done. And there's definitely some, again, there are certain moments leading up towards the third act of this game that I was like, oh, that's interesting, or that's a little bit of a twist. Like, there were a couple of twists that I thought were done well in the build up, but it's one of these things where you think those smaller twists are leading to an even bigger one, just to find out that no, like, that last twist you got, like, 15 hours ago, no, that was the one. It's like, oh, okay, all right. I guess that's a choice. Now maybe, to be clear, maybe they were going to do more, but everything they tried, maybe it just felt too forced, or maybe it just didn't work out. But after sitting on it for a little while and really thinking about it, I do, and I like Atsu as a character. To be clear, I think she's a good character, and she, in many ways, she is relatable to Jin, in the sense that, like, there's a real struggle there that you can feel. But it really was just kind of the events and how they unfold and where they lead. Irfan, you're saying, MG, come on, man, come on. The whole package is better than Tsushima. The gameplay is far better, and the story only falls short with the ending, in my opinion. Well, yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, the gameplay of Yotei is, to be honest, it's very difficult for me to judge, because it's been a while. It's been a good while since I played Tsushima. Um, I I think if I would be able to appreciate the gameplay of Yotei more if I just booted up Tsushima and realized like, okay, yeah, there are some differences here, certainly. Um, I don't know. There's just something about Tsushima that I don't. It had a. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Tsushima is a perfect game. Like there are aspects of Tsushima where I'm experiencing similar problems now, where it's like outside of the main story and some of the side quests, I'm struggling to want to keep playing this game. Like now, it feels like it's turning into a little bit of a chore to collect to check off all these boxes. But as a collective package, like one of the funnest things about Ghost of Yotei when playing as Hatsu is like, yeah, dude, the different weapons feel awesome. Like again, when you're in combat, you're picking up shit and throwing it at enemies, and you're doing your combos, and then you're switching weapons and you're changing it up, and you're fucking grabbing people with your Kasurigama, like scorpioning their ass and shit. Stuff like that is really fun, and it definitely adds a layer to the combat and the gameplay that just was not there in Tsushima. Um, so yeah, I do agree, and also visually, it's an outstanding game, absolutely. But I don't know. I guess I figured since we were on the topic of Ghost of Yotei, what choice did I make in Tsushima? Well, I don't want to spoil any. I don't know if there's people here who still plan on playing Tsushima, but I'm gonna try not to spoil that. Uh, Irfan says I'm tired of this nonsense. MRPD says I chose the right ending. So people were lying about that. I heard Atsu had a thing for it. So I will just touch on this. I don't think this is a spoiler. And I don't think anybody should take it as a spoiler because it's really not. Oh shit, that's crazy. Or no. Yeah, I'm just gonna say that in the same way with Jin, like just to be clear, like because I know people are again when people are always curious about this. In the same way that with Jin, there's really no love interest. Like this is not a game about romance, and this is not a love story. That's again, this if anything, maybe this is why it feels so similar in some ways. Where like, no, Atsu is there, dude. There's like one part in this game that totally caught me off guard. Okay, and this is not a spoiler, but it's just funny. When you go into a hot spring, and every time you go into a hot spring, you have a choice: either press square or triangle, and it'll tell you what she's going to think about. And one of the prompts that came up was it said something like press triangle, and it says on lovers or something like that, or on another's touch or something like that. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, okay, I'll click that one. And then she basically was thinking to herself, she's like, I can't even remember how long it's been since I've laid with another. She's like, I missed that. But then she was like, but then again, I won't have to, I don't have to worry about sneaking out in the morning or, and getting their stink off me or some shit like that. And I'm like, it was so out of pocket because there's nothing in this game that's, and I'm just like, well, that came out of nowhere. But I thought it was funny because I'm like, okay, that's just a thing, I guess you can ponder on in a hot spring. But outside of that, honestly, no, there is no, and I found that interesting because I was actually expecting at some point, like there was going to be, it kind of reminds me of Horizon a little bit, where you know how like throughout Horizon, you start to think at some point, like, well, actually, to be fair, at some point in the Horizon DLC, there is a love interest. But through the main Horizon games, you're like, is there going to be like a romance at any point here? And it's like, no, there isn't. It's kind of like that, where there's just no, the game isn't focused on that. So But that shouldn't be surprising necessarily because, again, in Tsushima, that wasn't a focus. And at no point in any of the trailers or the build-up with Yotei did they make it, did they make it clear that that's going to be a thing or that you should expect it. But, well, Wes, without, again, I'm going to be wrapping the stream up in literally just a minute, but this is where I feel like a little bit of subtlety goes a long way, where like, that's not even remotely how I interpreted that. Not even a little bit. I'm just saying, I'll put it to you this way. If that was something that the devs were trying to telegraph, I did not pick up on it. Like, at all. In fact, when I look at the dynamic between those specific characters, I actually, that's where I was expecting a potential twist that never happened. And I'm not going to take it any further than that because I am definitely getting the spoiler territory. But between those two particular characters, I was like, that's where the big twist is, and it's going to be something shocking. And then it just never happened. And I'm like, oh. And then I started to think, like, maybe it could go in the other direction, but then it just didn't go in that direction either. I'm like, oh, okay. It's exactly what it seems. What they say and what you see is what you get. I'm like, interesting. Anyway, guys, yeah, here's what we're going to do. This is where I'm going to wrap this stream up. Okay, Press X podcast is done. I'm going to set up another stream that I'll go live at 4 o'clock for the State of Play. Okay, so we'll have about an hour to talk going into the State of Play. We'll watch it together, and we'll talk about what was shown. All right? But before that, I want to get it set up and take a little breather and get a little bit of food. Oh, you like the main story better than Tsushima, YJT? Well, yeah, it's a bit 50-50. I see people say they like Tsushima's better, they like Yotei's better. That's good. They're both good. Like, you can't go wrong with either, I would say. Certainly not. But all right, guys, that's going to do it for this stream. Thank you for tuning in. Again, I have another one coming up. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out. Thank you for everybody who dropped support, and I will see you in just a little bit. All right, so till then, take care, everyone.